Hey, appreciate that, Joel. But I appreciate that, man. I appreciate y'all tuning in. I got a good show lined up for y'all. I think that this is going to be a real constructive conversation. Um, between me and Chef, and I think the best part of it is going to be like it's going. You're definitely going to hear a lot of things that's going to challenge your preconceived notions about DEI. And that's going to be a good thing, right? When you're faced with challenges like that, you realize that you're going to have to compartmentalize some of the things that you've already learned or that you think you know or might have just had, just initial impressions of. And then when you dig a little bit deeper, you might actually run into some information that forces you to challenge that. And for better or worse, right? I'm going to give some information as far as what are the tangible things that we can point out from DEI? Like how can we quantify the results of DEI over the last let's just go with 10, 15 years, right? It's I think that's the contemporary time period that we're talking about. And we're looking to see how effective it is in modern day and how it's implemented, how it's used. To be able to improve the standing of African Americans here in America. And that's really what we're looking for. That's what we're looking for. That's what we're talking about. We want to figure out how we can use DEI to progress corporately, to progress educationally, right? How do we, how is it implemented in a way that's beneficial to the Black community? I think that's what the conversation is. That's what we come here for. And I'm actually really anxious to hear Chef take. You know, I gotta. I think he's throwing a fastball right down the middle. Right. I think I know exactly what he's gonna say, how he's gonna say it, why he's gonna say it. I think I've like literally have scouted out everything that I think he's gonna say. Hopefully, he proves me wrong. I'm telling you right now, if he throws that fastball down the middle of the plate, I'm hitting out the park. Just saying it, right? I'm waiting on him to show up. Hopefully he's actually still looking over some stuff to getting his argument a little bit well rounded because a shallow interpretation of DEI is not going to cut it. I'm thinking he's going to come in here and pull on some heartstrings and try to appeal to the masses, right? And I'm going to demolish that. If that's what he does, it's going to be really easy. You know what I'm saying? I don't have I don't have Republican talking points. I don't went a little bit further into what DEI does, what it is, and how effective it is. So I'm interested. Without further ado, I got something that'll help us kind of catch up on the conversation while we're waiting on Chef. I think this would be real constructive as far as like um, hearing some people's other people's criticism of DEI, right? And that's important because you always want to know both sides of the story. The people who criticize it might not be wrong, right? And unless you just um, actually hear them out, you might be really missing something. Let me make sure. Where's my banner for fair use? Let's go. I'm gonna break this down. I'm gonna pause it so we can get some clarification on some talking points. We're gonna get into this.
In this form, I ask you all to engage in the chat with things that resonate with you as you listen to these words.
Anybody how it feels to be in love if they've never been in love? And what about your freedom? How do you convince a generation to fight for a freedom they've never seen? A new way of seeing the skin they woke up in, that skin.
I'm just going to pause it just right there. Is anybody else confused with that? Fight for a freedom they never seen? I wonder what that actually means. Does that mean like we're actually searching for this anomaly in human history since we've never seen it? What are we talking about? Like, are we talking about a country with no wealth disparities, or like, I think that's a strong precedent, you know. Be it, let's not try to include racism just yet, but no wealth disparities, like, is that a realistic baseline for, if that's what freedom is, like, does that make sense? Taking race out the equation.
More melanated than the truth they've been fed. Where is the proof? Their eyes will ask you, where is the proof? Where are our examples, our warriors, to exist in the shadows of your home country's education and need the light of day in ways you cannot see? Our babies need proof. And I am that proof. We are that proof. The Nina Simone reflecting liberators, the Ray Landis equity makers, the Julian Earls, the Marion Blaylocks, the proof.
Shout out to the Black liberators out there. I know y'all in here. I know y'all trickling in one at a time, real slow. Y'all might listen to the rewind to catch it after it done posted and went live. Shout out to my Black liberators out there, man. Keep up the good work.
Of lives enriched by sticking with the truth that it cannot stay like this. Our kids need real opportunities tailored to fit the homes they grew up in. They need the Derek Scotts, the Virginia Booths with comfortable dialects that sound like proof that your native tongue ain't ghetto everywhere, and that your made-up songs have value in the air. Proof that a culture is worth its weight in community striving for change. Proof that we deserve a system that doesn't make a game and statistic out of our survival. Proof that access is granted to more than my test scores. They need to be sure they can give back to their communities, because what's the fun in surviving on your own and thriving with no home, just houses made of money made and paid outside of your own communities? Their eyes will beg you for proof and accept nothing less than a guarantee that they can do something to grow the roots of their family's tree. We are that proof. The seeds of communities built to love where they came from, unashamed of the names they gave us, because they'll always have to call us something. Minority, underrepresented, underserved, underexposed. I prefer underimpressed, neglected with the rest of the children of the hardworking.
Now, unfortunately, I think we're locked into a paradigm that does have language that speaks about people in groups, right? You're either going to be a minority, white collar, blue collar, above or below 150,000, above, below 50, 100,000. Like, at some point in time, you would need policy to address people in groups, right? And doing it racially is difficult, right? Not impossible, but I'm gonna say difficult for X amount of reasons. But doing it, let's say if we were talking about income wise, if we were talking about people, and not even saying impoverished, right? People making less than 200, people making less than 100, and people making less than 150. You would be targeting a group of people, regardless of color, that are in a certain financial situation, and that's really not that bad, right? And because if those are the people that you're looking to target, Black people would make up a very large number of that, and I thought that's what kind of we're trying to do is to make policy directed towards people of particular income demographics, not necessarily racial demographics, right? We don't want to make policy that just helps, wealthy Black people. I'm sure we want to raise the floor, which would be more so concerning to lower income Black people.
Nation builders, no more patience building. It's time to put the truth in the air and on the news and into the curriculum, because my kids ain't dumb. Culturally wealthy in ways our systems call unhealthy. They stealthy with the way they oppress my kind, and they ain't never been colorblind.
What? So we don't got no cultural ways that you would consider unhealthy? Okay, I'm gonna just press the button.
Income bias and maybe tax averse, but never unaware of the place they try to put us. Maybe they need proof, just like my babies. They need a mini McGee that they can still see. We are that proof that we are not a foreign policy or option or interest group, proof that we are citizens too, and too tired to still be neglected, too inspired to stay where you left us, too powerful to stay disconnected. The rest is history in the making. Freedom for the taking. How are you going to tell anybody how it feels to be in love if they've never been in love? And what about your freedom? Show them the proof.
I mess with it. I mess with it.
So again, I asked you to engage in the chat. I see some comments. What things resonate with you? What things are sticking with you? What things are you thinking about? A couple of things. There's plenty in this poem to think about for me that resonates with me. But first, I think the backdrop of Nina Simone's song, Young, Gifted, and Black, and just how that was, and I would argue still is, a radical statement to say that Black folks are gifted, right? And not in the terms of the content.
By the way, I got to pause it right quick because that Nina Simone song, Young, Gifted, and Black, has a very, very good backstory to it. And if y'all are interested in hearing about a person who went through a more public struggle with being young, gifted, and Black, her musical career is all about that. Just something to check out. Nina Simone, Young, Gifted, and Black. That was a pretty serious thing in America at one time.
Context of advanced education or people who have special talents, but rather as normal human beings, that they have talents and purposes, that we have talents and purposes, right? And throughout the poem, Chanel gets at the point that it's not us who is lacking or deficient, but rather the structures and power structures of our society that is trying to keep us contained and suppressed, right? And so that's the point where I get into this conversation. But another thing I particularly appreciate is how Chanel calls out who I call gate holders. So oftentimes people talk about gatekeepers, right? The folks who are keeping other folks out. Whatever the context may be is exclusive. There are barriers set up that maintain the exclusivity. And when Chanel talked about Julian Earls, Marion Blaylock, Virginia Booth Womack, specifically she named Derek Scott, who is a gentleman that I didn't even know. I've been here, this is my second year, but I heard his name a lot when I told folks I was coming here. And so he has a strong legacy of supporting students here at the University of Michigan. And I call these folks gate holders because if you can imagine like castle gates that come down, these are the folks where while the institution and the structure is trying to keep folks out, they're literally holding the gate open.
Where's Chef at, man? You scared? Anybody seen Chef? We got to put the PBA out there now, man.
Bottom of the gate, again, those dungeons, castle gates are very sharp so that folks can be punctured if they stay under. And I view these folks, if you can go there with your imagination, I view these folks as their hands, arms, whatever they have being punctured to hold open the gate so the excluded, in this case, speaking about Black folks, can get in, can get access. And the true gate holders, they don't only hold open the gate, but they come and they give you crumbs off the king's table. They make sure you're good, right? They make sure you get blankets, even as you are marginalized within the kingdom, right? And so I'm honored to be here and be able to speak to you all, but I think is that those folks who really can take a lot of lessons from, and it's folks who I've learned from who have been in those positions. And so I have made mainly two claims on why I view DEI is a fallacy. And so
you know what? I'm really trying not to say no crazy stuff up here, bro. But you know how late this chef had to be before he a DEI host, right? before I'm being more diverse and equitable and inclusive to his culture of not being on time, right? Like, am I making an exception for my co-host tonight, right? Or am I just simply asking him to be qualified, right? Let me press the play button again, man.
So we'll go through those. The first is DEI, I argue, is a social construction designed to preserve the white power structure or hierarchy without redress. Right. So I'll go through a book that kind of explains how this plays out at the University of Michigan, or has played out. But I think when we look at the function of DEI, not individuals who have DEI positions, our diversity, equity, inclusion positions, not folks who engage in these activities, but the function of what diversity.
Very key right there. We're looking at the function of it. We're not talking about the written language, our preconceived notion, what we think it do. We're talking about actually how it's working today.
Equity and inclusion does. It really allows this reality where institutions can both claim to support change, difference, equitable measures, and yet never deal with or reckon with the fact, the policies, the procedures, the practices, the people who have why the DEI is needed, right? The history of exclusion and inequity. And so it allows this duality to exist, right? And it's very tiring for those of us who want to see change. The other part of that is
what? Y'all hear that little young brother right there say it's tiring for people who want to see change? Is he giving us a clue? You got to keep your ears open, man. Like, this is actually a really deep conversation. You know what I'm saying? Or you might find yourself scratching, clawing, and clamoring for something that long term is not shown to be effective, at least not in the way you want it to be. And that's actually really problematic, right? Do we know so little about DEI that we willing to fight for something that don't even work? Are we tripping like that? I don't know. I'm waiting on Chef, man.
I'm kind of losing my thought. So it allows a duality. Oh, DEI was not designed to address oppression. Right, so that's the other thing. The DEI, when we talk about diversity and just being different, many folks have reformed the definitions or revised or tried to find ways to articulate the need for diversity, equity, and inclusion. But what you see, even in those re-articulations, they don't address this larger structure and social system of oppression.
I gotta pause it right there because he's getting too deep, man. He going too hard right now, yo. Like, the man say that DEI was not built to fight oppression. I mean, it's not the only thing it wasn't meant for, but whole time if we sitting here thinking that that's what it does, we already working with a false preconceived notion. Your premise is off before you even get started. We talking about a Band-Aid. We talking about something that was meant to deal with the social climate in the late 1960s, early 1970s, and does not necessarily fit the social climate and the social predicament of African Americans in 2024. And that's what we needed to do. We needed to produce. I'm not even gonna spoil it, man. Where's Chef at?
They are meant to say, a lot of people talking about, well, we just need a seat at the table. Diverse people need seats at the table. But what good is it if different people are coming to the same table that they have been excluded from? It may appear to be progress, but those underlying structures that we'll get to persist and reproduce new forms of harm. The second one is this idea is that DEI appropriates the previously excluded. So talking about Black people here, appropriates them and consequently suppresses the growth of alternative spaces. This is a generic way of what I'm specifically speaking to is places like historically Black colleges and universities, of which I am a product, right? Or I have my bachelor's degree.
Hey, Chief X, man, I appreciate you showing up, bro. But you know what? You can't blame me for my co-host leaving me so much room in the argument that their position is that we need DEI. You can't blame me for that. That was his position. You know, stated it several times. I mean, he left me a lot of room to deal with, do we need DEI, right? What does DEI actually do? What does it benefit? Is it like totally, you know, could it possibly be work even better than it does now? Like, you know, he left me just a lot of room on the table. I'm taking all of it. You know, it ain't my fault. It ain't my fault. If we playing Uno and I got to draw 4 to draw 2 and skip and reverse in my hand, I might play all that at one time. But I tell you this, where's Chef at though?
Degree at HBCUs. And so what happens is with DEI, when institutions are able to market themselves as being open and welcoming, and this actually goes beyond just race and racism, but in particular, I'm talking about anti-Black racism today. Instead of those students being drawn to places where they can exist and be viewed as humane, they are drawn to these types of institutions because of the marketing, the new initiatives, the strategic plans that appears that the institution is going to change, and yet nothing truly changes. So first claim, there's a book called Undermining Racial Justice by Matthew Johnson, came out 2 years ago. And in that book, I think he does a really good job of talking about the history of Michigan and the ways it's politically leveraged.
Hey, and Joel, man, in case you didn't catch that, man, I don't want to back it up, but trust me, what he said is nothing truly changes. I don't know if you really caught that, right? I don't know if you really caught that. I don't know if you understand, like this really isn't that difficult of a conversation, even for a pro-Black person to have a stance on, right? Like I'm taking it easy right now. I'm really just like kind of low-key killing time because I thought he'd have been here by now for real. But like it's really not that crazy. And unfortunately, hopefully it's not something like unfathomable for someone else to be like, oh, there could be a better policy in place for us than what this is, right? Like I'm sitting on a lot of stuff that I'm just waiting to get to, right? You know, I'm a detour for a quick second, right? So we're in 2024, and I literally just had a real estate agent on my show explaining that there's no conspiracy about Black people not being able to get into houses in whatever neighborhood that they want to. And yet we've had DEI for 50 years now, and it still is getting worse. The gap between Black and white owners is worse now than it was a decade ago. Like the wealth gap is getting wider now, right? And then we talking about DEI as if it has prevented all of this. I mean, the article right there on the screen, what you talking about, Cap 4? See, that's why, you know what? I ain't gonna let y'all derail me, man.
Diversity, but he talks specifically about Black activism and the experiences of Black students. And so I want to dig into this quote. It says, the members of the Michigan community who are attracted to this new language talking about diversity focus exclusively on diversity's potential to improve race relations. ignoring the fact that Black students were using diversity language to justify programs that address their feelings of social alienation and to gain more power over the spaces they inhabit. So those are two different things, right? So part of the political function of diversity or DEI altogether is there's not a shared understanding necessarily of what they mean and what we're using it for. Is it to advance technological production? Is it to maintain, primacy of the national imperialistic primacy? Like what and so it a lot, because it's largely nebulous and ambiguous, it allows different people with even competing interests to leverage it. And what we see here is the University of Michigan being exclusive to Black people says, hey, let's bring in these folks so we can do something about the white prejudice that exists within our community.
I mean, y'all should have heard a lot of that right there, man. I mean, we talking about progress, we talking about ideology, right? We talking about it sound good, or we talking about do it work, right? Gotta keep pausing it. I put in some work, man. I be trying to keep our little train rolling, bro. Shout out to Tri Media, man. I'm real excited about being a part of it, helping to grow. So, y'all gotta forgive me if I tentatively am oversensitive about getting flagged, even though I got the thing up there. I gotta pause it, give some commentary. It makes me feel better. But well, I mean, Sheffield, this is horrible. You got the option to hit the button, right? I don't even want to play this. I really want to hear you out. And for us to have a conversation, I don't want to be reading what you say when you could just hit the button and come up here and talk to your boy, man. I decided not to do it for the last 3-4 days. So you should, there you go. Kyle gets it. That's my DEI presenter, yo. I gotta make exceptions and exclusions for this guy. He late. He don't hit the button. He probably on the road. I'm talking crap, but I'm a busy guy, man. Hit the panel, bro. You got it. Ain't nothing but space and opportunity, as they say out there. I gotta back that up because homie just went ham. He literally just went off on DEI, and y'all probably missed it.
Diversity or DEI altogether is there's not a shared understanding necessarily of what they mean and what we're using it for. Is it to advance technological production? Is it to maintain, primacy of the national imperialistic primacy? Like what and so it a lot, because it's largely nebulous and ambiguous, it allows different people with even competing interests to leverage it. And what we see here is the University of Michigan being exclusive to Black people says, hey, let's bring in these folks so we can do something about the white prejudice that exists within our community. And so while the folks who are there are looking to bring other folks in, the folks who are being brought in are saying, hey, no, we're trying to use it we know we've been alienated. We know that we've been left on the margins. We need these other programs. So we're trying to use this language to get what we need to exist and be well. And everyone else has said, no, come hang with us. It's okay. We'll be different. We'll change. We'll do things differently. Right. So that's one. But the second part where the political aspect comes in is they were trying to leverage it to gain power over the spaces they inhabited. So it's one thing to be able to exist in the space. It's another thing to have your perspective, your way of viewing the world, your knowledge, your sense-making, meaning-making practices being valued, for you to have self-determination within that space, as opposed to you being appreciated as long as you go along and assimilate to the mainstream.
Yes, it's been around since the late 1960s. I believe it's 1968. It's been around for a very long time. So all these results that you're seeing as far as disparities in wealth and disparities in home ownership, disparities in job, disparities in income are all happening under the regulations of DEI. Yep. So the Black Lives Matter movement was like a revamping of sorts. That's probably when you see a lot of corporations incorporating DEI policies, and that's kind of like, I think that's around the time cancel culture starts to kick in America and all that kind of stuff. Why I gotta clearly define DEI? You the one saying we need it. You should be clearly defined DEI. That should be you doing it. You the one saying we need it. So come explain what we need, since we need it. I think that's fair. I think that's fair. I'm saying we don't need it like that. You saying we need it, but can't explain it. How'd that go? That's crazy. Crazy.
Those are different realities. And so this is why I say DEI is largely socially constructed to be leveraged to retain the ideology of white supremacy. My second argument is use some statistics. Historically Black colleges and universities represent less than 3% of all colleges. There's approximately 105 HBCUs. And so that's what that number on the left is. Moving to the top right, that's 16%. Even though they represent less than 3% of all higher ed institutions, they produce about 16%, at least in 2018, they produced 16% of Black engineering degree earners. Okay, so let me say it again. The HBCUs represent less than 3% of all colleges and institutions. But for Black students, they produce 16% of those who earn engineering degrees in particular, right? So not STEM, not business at large, but specifically engineering. And so that's an outsized contribution to society, right? And so this idea of DEI, where folks are like, what's wrong with Black students, or how can we get more Black students? We have institutions who have long been not just shepherding Black students, but producing successful Black graduates. And they're not just degree owners at the bachelor graduate level, right? Because you can argue, well, anybody can get a degree. What does that mean? But the 30% number says HBCUs are responsible for 30% of Black doctoral engineering and science students. So these students are not only graduating, these students are not only going to the workforce, but these students are also pursuing graduate study at institutions like the University of Michigan. As we heard in my background, I went to Michigan State afterwards, and even Purdue University. So this idea that they're not good enough, they're not capable, it holds no weight when we look at actual data and statistics. So what is the role of DEI? What purpose is it really serving? And again, I argue that it is to preserve the white power structure, but also preventing these type of institutions from being better able to serve students in a broader white.
Okay, so y'all just heard the young man's premise, right? He thinks that DEI is actually doing the work of maintaining the status quo of white supremacy. I don't quite think that, right? My premise, to say shortly, is that DEI was one of those temporary band-aids, pacifiers that was given to the Black community that temporarily patched up some grievances that were directed towards our community at the time, right? And those particular grievances were about representation, right? Why aren't there more Black people getting these jobs, right? Now, however, to not overcomplicate it, this DEI in 2024 is more of theater. It's more of a show than it is actually something effective, right? So whereas it opens the door for minority groups, not just Black people, because white women are considered a minority group also, right? This quote unquote need from Chef, I would agree with him if I could simply quantify where it has led to significant gains or significant I guess reduction of this wealth gap and this home ownership gap, right? But what it fails to do is, I think, is far more devastating than what it appears to be doing, right? The appearance of DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion, but that does not mean more Black managers. That doesn't mean higher Black income. It could potentially mean more entry-level Black jobs. It certainly has nothing to do with vertical integration. It certainly doesn't have anything to do with producing skills for those higher earning positions. So for a company to become, I guess, compliant with DEI initiatives, they just need to show employees. They don't have to show, oh, this is how much we pay them. They don't have to show, oh, this is the position they have. All they need to show is we are a diverse company corporation. Here are the demographics of our employees. Is that what we were looking for, right? Or were we looking to, here's an even more simple version, right? Timestamp this, right? I'm at 39 minutes, 20 seconds, right? This is what we really want DEI to do. We really want DEI to produce more qualified candidates. That's what we really wanted to do. We really want that same money that's used to incentivize corporations, used to incentivize colleges. We want that $1 billion to be put back into that K through 12 program to produce people who are actually able to go into college and be ready for the curriculum. That's what we really want. We don't want them to take our mediocre, average, and our best and put them in positions where they look like they're just counted for, right? We want them to actually be able to challenge those people in those environments. That's what we really want. We want that quality education to happen from K to 12, right? So when they get to college, right, now you're producing people who are actually just as prepared as their counterparts. And you want to know how we know that that's not what it does? Because you can easily, very, very easily go right to Wikipedia, and it's going to tell you how underfunded predominantly Black schools are. That's how we know. It's how we know it ain't doing what we think it's doing. It's how we know it's not producing better educations in our neighborhood. That's how we know it's not producing better jobs, because people are still living on the poverty line in our communities. How we know. See, I done ranted. Y'all can disagree with that all you want. Bring your facts up here.
White power structure. And I'll get back to that sense of belonging and things like that in a little bit. So moving on to the 3 C's of engineering. First, we look at engineering content. Many folks are aware that whether you've gone through an undergraduate engineering program or not, many folks are pretty aware that the curriculum of engineering at the undergraduate level is, and really graduate too, is largely based on mathematics. Some folks will argue science, and I would say to a certain extent, but largely it's mathematics. And that was from the beginning of engineering education formation in the United States. So in 1807 was the first.
I don't know if any of y'all out there in an engineering program, this young man right here says that he's in the Michigan engineering. He is producing a presentation from the Michigan Engineering YouTube channel, right? So he's for all intents and purposes, better than we know, a student at Michigan in the engineering program talking about why DEI isn't working at Michigan engineering program. I think he'll know better than y'all. That's why I ain't listening to y'all. That's why I'm playing the video, not dropping the link right now, and I am listening to him.
First creation of a formal engineering education program, and that was at West Point. It was a military academy, right? I'll let you all recall a thing about where most of the Black folks in the nation were doing 1807. But while that was going on, engineering education programs were created. And so there's a paper by Dr. Erin Seck, which at the end of my presentation, I have references for all the different resources I'm relying on. But she has a paper that talks about how engineers tend to misframe issues of social justice. One point that she makes, and I should also say Dr. Seck is a sociologist. He's here at University of Michigan in the Department of Sociology, and also has a joint appointment with mechanical engineering. So you can access her. She's doing great work around here. But she talks about this ideology, this logical positivism, the belief that science and engineering work can be separated. Scientific and engineering methods of inquiry and design are followed. Sorry, it's a typo there. And so instead of critiquing explicitly,
I'm hoping I don't need to break down stuff that's on the screen for you to read. But sometimes, man, y'all make me think I might need to. I'm just pausing it, right? Because I don't want us to get flagged. I think it's a great conversation, and I'd hate to ruin it, because I just forgot to pause the video a couple times. But it's on the screen. I'm leaving it up there, right? It says they want to remove engineering from messy social concerns, right? Can you imagine an engineer, right? Somebody looking to contain the pressures of a new engine or what have you, right? Somebody trying to contain the pressures of an explosion and revert this energy into something that they can use, right, for powering something, right? Do you imagine that job going to somebody who, I don't know, barely passed, whether they're Mexican, Chinese, white, Black? Like, is that who you want designing your engine? I think it's a fair question. How do we take the weight off of race and put it on competence? Is that possibly beneficial, especially in certain fields? That's why I pulled this particular presentation, right? Do I want to base my engineering hires? Do I want their race to play a major role in who gets the job? Or do I literally want the best people that I can find in the department? It's an easy answer for me. I don't know about y'all. I'm press play.
Explicitly, the over-reliance on mathematics, which has already been done, a lot of folks get at that. I want to focus here on this idea of logical positivism because that is the root of where the emphasis on science and mathematics comes. Dr. Seck also talks about these ideologies of depoliticization, separating social and technical knowledge, and not just separating them, but seeing social knowledge as inferior to technical knowledge and technical training. And then she talks about meritocracy, the belief that we live in a just system. So all these things work together to justify the absence of Black people in engineering, or the minimal or the low presence, right? And so part of the issue is we need to expand the content of the curriculum, and not just in general. And that's not just bringing. So
easy answer is reform, right? Once we reform it, I mean, whether you rename it or what have you, I feel like since Chef left me so much room, since he says we need DEI, he can't be talking about a new DEI, or he would have just simply stated that as well, right? We need to reform DEI. You know, very simple answer. We absolutely do need programs that help minorities. Now, how do you focus that on probably less on hires, on new hires and college students, and maybe focus it a little bit more on earlier childhood development, or even like neighborhood development, right? So like the battle is really about resources, right? If I gave you $1 billion, do you use it to incentivize programs or incentivize schools to be more diverse, or do you increase the quality of education from K through 12, right? And all the problems in between. The problems in between can be, some of those college students, are they becoming college students at their particular college because of their ethnicity and less because of their test scores? It raises fundamental questions about all those different things, right? You know, are their test scores don't carry as much weight as their ethnicity, right? Is because that's what people mean when they say a DEI hire, right? They're basically saying that you're not qualified. So, you know, I mean, I think that that's where the small conversation is. If I gave you $1 billion, $2 billion, are you saying it's more beneficial to keep the hood poor and keep the education bad, the quality bad between K through 12th grade, and then once they complete the 12th grade, now put their race at the forefront of how they qualify for what college they go to? Or do you put the money into the quality of education from K through 12 to produce more qualified candidates to actually just qualify for the college that they go to? I mean, to me, that's an easy answer. You know, so I'm putting it out there, making it nice and easy for Chef to rebuttal. He could say I'm tripping, but you're going to have to bring some facts. He ain't going to just be able to say I'm tripping. If he ever come, you know what I'm saying? He say he's still cutting there, you know, whatever.
Social problems or social issues to discuss, but there's a way of thinking about the world that engineers are socialized into. And it doesn't explicitly say Black people can't be engineers. It doesn't explicitly say that, you know, Black people's issues don't matter. But what it does say is we're here to do science and engineering, and true engineering work is not related to these social issues, even though there are social implications. That's a deeply embedded problem that prevents us from not only getting at the issues of Black people, but more broadly moving to a context where engineers can address the broader issues that they have actually caused, right? And so moving on to another, you know, well-known Michigan scholar, Dean Alec Gallimore, he's recently been talking about equities in engineering, and now that's expanded to people first engineering. Last year, I believe it was, he did a Q&A, question and answer session. I think it's a really good, I have my copy here highlighted. I think it's a really good discussion that he provides. But one of the things he says that engineering training is incomplete without incorporating fields such as ethics, social science, the humanities, history, and matters associated with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so to the faculty online and the talk, the first thing I would suggest to argue and encourage is we need to figure out how not just the electives or some courses, right? Because I offer a course called Mechanical Engineering and Social Justice, ME 499, will be offered in the winter. And in that course, I focus a lot on the social science and history of engineering, right? That's how I can speak to the formations of the first engineering program. The first engineering program as a Black institution was in 1911, really technically 1907, I'm sorry. It's a 2-year engineering program at Howard University, which expanded to a 4-year program in 1911, right? And so in between that time, you had 2 land grant or Moral Land Grant Acts, and those gave money to expand specifically participation in studying engineering. But the first one, I think in 1862, only focused on white institutions and access to white people. And then in 1890, that was expanded to provide money for Black institutions or alternative programs. And so all these things have social implications, and it's important to look at the history of where we came from to understand how did these ideologies of positivism and so on and so forth, which contribute to how we make sense of the world, how are they so deeply embedded and limited in our engineering education process? Because prior to 1807, the first engineering education program, engineering was happening. And I'll talk about that a little bit later, but engineering has always existed into ancient countries and kingdoms and ancient history. But when it became formalized in American United States institutions, there was a certain framing that took place. And so we need to understand where that came from and why it was framed in that way to be able to reconstruct and build new ways of learning.
Man, well, shout out to Sosa, man. Sosa got one of the best shows on YouTube, that Crash Out Thursdays. That joint definitely be fire. Definitely be fire. I actually had a pretty cool topic I wanted to bring up, but I'm saving that. I'm keeping that in reserve. You know what I'm saying? For you know, I don't want to crash out though. I just want to have a constructive conversation. I think that some people who I actually think are pretty smart were a little bit all over the place when it all over the place probably isn't right, but maybe not adhering to some of their previous stances when it came to a particular topic that we discussed, you know. So I'm gonna bring that up at some point, right? I've got all the ammunition I need. I literally figured it out. So I'm gonna try to do it in like a friendly way, right? I don't want it to be like no war, but I think y'all boys is wrong. You know what I'm saying? I said from the jump that y'all were defining it wrong, and I'm basically talking to Sosa because he know what I'm talking about. Y'all's definition of the term was wrong, so it led you down this path of misinterpreting everything else after it, right? Like, so, you know, man. You know, the timing is everything, Fetty. Timing is everything, bro. Literally.
But in particular, you know, Dr. Seck talks about the one-off courses, right? And so I'm currently involved with a project called the DEI Case Study Initiative. And so in that project, we build or develop modules that can be inserted into engineering courses. And we try to do more than that, but it's a start, right? And so one of the things that Dr. Seck says is like, yes, we can make connections to the social science and humanities in a course.
Shout out to Limway, man.
That alone is inefficient because we need to deconstruct these ideologies. And so that's why on this slide, I put these two commentaries together, and I encourage you to go check out the entire work or articles from both of these. Moving then into culture, because content is mainly around in the classroom and the explicit interactions between professors and students, but there's a broader culture that goes along as you progress through classes, as you do extracurricular activities, as you interact with administrators. And so typically when we talk about culture, we look at this tree image. Typically when folks talk about culture, they're looking at surface culture, things like songs associated with different racial groups, hairstyles, music, and food. Right. And this graphic displays that there are different levels, and particularly deep culture is where I want to get at. And so what does it look like for engineering? At a high level, we can see that engineering is analytical, a lot of analytical thinking. We can say it's very masculine due to the demographics of who's there. It requires a lot of hard work. We can get to this idea of hard work. But as I said earlier, it also focuses on a lot of math. So for a lot of folks, this is what engineering is. It's white, meaning there are a lot of white people within engineering. And again, we need history to understand why that is and how that shapes what it means to do engineering. And then efficiency, right? And so there are many other aspects, things that we can see easily identify. If we dig a little bit deeper.
Hey, and first of all, man, y'all can't blame me, man. I did 2 shows this week. And I don't know if y'all understand what preparing for a show actually looks like, at least for me, right? I attempt to be as factual as I can, have as much data as I can to be able to back up everything I'm saying. And, you know, so I just went through all this whole modern day redlining stuff, right? Was doing that from Sunday, basically to Wednesday night or Tuesday night, doing the show. Pick up, you know, Wednesday morning from, you know, nonstop. And I also had some prior stuff that I had already looked at from Wednesday to right now, nonstop, looking at DEI, the critiques, the pros and cons, like looking at both sides of the argument, right? And I thought that this was pretty telling because you get an African American story about his experience with DEI at Michigan University in an engineering class, right? And you know, the short version is for those who are having trouble following the information, you know, how important is his race when it comes to these factors that he's laying out, right? Is his race more important than hard work when it comes to choosing engineering? Is his race more important than his mathematical skills when it comes to engineering? Is his race more important than his efficacy when it comes to engineering? Is his race more important than his masculinity? I don't know why it even says that up there. I'm just reading what it says. And his analytical ability as an engineer, I'm just reading what it says, right? So, and you know, from what I'm saying, I kind of got distracted. What I started out by saying, I didn't do all that research and preparation to have this conversation. To give away my entire hand talking to myself. That's not what I prepared for. So I'm trying to I'm trying to keep the show going. But you know, hopefully I can actually get Chef on so he can save everybody, right? You know, he gonna be the champion and I'm gonna be the bad guy, which I'm cool with. But he gonna have to bring some facts, yo. He gonna have to show me something. I'm even curious, is he gonna share the screen one time? I want to see it. Very curious. Very, very curious.
We see that, as I said, engineering is exclusive, but in particular competitive. So it's not only that white people exist or masculine or men are there or that is math, but there's also, you have to look at your peer in a different way. A lot of that is initiated through things like curve grading, right? Where it's not based on my individual competence, but it's about how I do in relation to someone else. A lot of that is due to many other things as well. Militarism, as I stated, engineering was born out of a military academy, or at least it was institutionalized, I should say. Militarism, civil engineering was the first engineering discipline, and the goal was to use technology to advance imperialistic ambitions, as well as building up society, highways, bridges, and things like that. And so as that became less of a need, then it began to expand into other interests, and that's where we get the Moore Acts and things like that. Ideas of objectivity, and there's a lot of working in teams. One of the things, again, when we get to shallow culture and go a little bit deeper, we see that it's not just about that people are put together. We need to understand, how do we work well in teams? What motivations and interests and perspectives influence the way that people work together? So at the root of the culture of engineering, we see this idea of hardness and depoliticization. There was a paper where some scholars studied the culture of engineering. This is one of the things that they found. The theme of hardness seemed to permeate the conversations of faculty and students, conveying worth and status with a devaluing of content or subject areas which were seen as easier to solve. So as you see, as I go through, these things connect back to prior things. So going back to the content, one of the reasons why engineering does not engage with the social sciences, humanities, and history, because those are seen as soft sciences. The knowledge and even the skills, communication skills, speaking, working together, are seen as soft skills, right? And so in engineering, where hardness is esteemed, there's a belief that because something is more difficult, making things difficult intentionally, even if it's unnecessary, those who can make it and survive are the ones who deserve to be here. When we look at mathematics and how abstract mathematics can get, the goal is not about is this mathematics actually relevant for engineering work? It's more so those who can do it are the ones who belong here. Another paper talked about it was recognized that academic survival and success would be very difficult for any student who was marginalized or loner. So going back to the quote around Black students who are trying to leverage diversity to get programs to be included and to gain more power in the spaces that they inhabit, they understood that when they were being socially isolated and alienated, they.
What's up, Chef? Chef the barber.
What up, Logic? You cooking? I see you.
I'm holding it down, man. I'm holding it down. You got a quick second since I've been pontificating about what my stance is. If you could, kindly allow the people to know exactly why we need DEI and, what were you thinking when you said that and all that kind of good stuff?
Yeah, I got you. All right, Loto, hold on.
That's cool. Do your thing. I'm about to play a commercial. Gather your thoughts. Make sure they right now. Like that line that you doing right there.
Trimedia Records.
This is my story. Get the story.
On your ID, you see me calling nigga. Out of his league, a workaholic nigga. Nickname, big game, big thing. Handle his business, he never switched lanes. Had some brain surgeries in high school. Still came out that bitch a top dude. Moved to the city of the Mavericks. Came out this bitch dropping classes.
That was fire. Man, you know what's crazy? Like sometimes, man, Trimedia cold, bro. Trimedia is absolutely ridiculous. And shout out to DQ, shout out to Hits, man. Do a lot of work behind the scenes, go unseen, go unnoticed. But trust me, yo, them dudes is putting in major work, like for real. Like they got some stuff coming up, right? It might be top secret for y'all right now, man. I ain't gonna lie to you. But it's coming, it's definitely coming out of the pipeline. We talking about, DQ is doing a lot. Constantly in the studio. Way more than I even thought he was, for real. Man, DQ be doing it, man.
Yeah, that's a fact. Shot, man, where Hits been at, man? I don't like when he not around, man. I need that that older brother wisdom and mindset he bring.
Oh, trust me, he is going to clean up whatever you mess up. So he on your side, right? But we waiting on you to mess it up first so Hits can come behind.
So all right, so let's do that. So let's do this. First off,
shout out to On the Spot, man. Appreciate her doing the show with me, man. That was a great show. If y'all missed it, we did a great show on Redlining on Tuesday. Go ahead, Chef, do your thing.
All right, so hopefully I'm here to help save this debacle, right? Because it's crazy that the first thing that you did, you should have explained what DEI was. So now we about to have an argument, right? And I don't even know if you fully understand what the hell DEI is. And see, you said you didn't watch some videos, you know what I mean? You just did your deep dive, so you are just getting abreast of this. So now I gotta fight against a guy who think he didn't learn everything he need to know about DEI in a couple days. So now you feel as though you really can take it down. Bro, explain what DEI is before me and you start arguing, yo.
Mm-hmm. I thought I did a great job of that without making it overcomplicated for whoever's listening. Mm-hmm. I explained DEI as a band-aid. Started in 1968, come out the civil rights movement that Lyndon Johnson passed, right, in the 60s during the Martin Luther King, right? Also came out with the EEOC, which is like the commission that oversees equity hires, right? That's kind of like the enforcers of DEI to make sure that y'all companies in compliance. in long story short, I basically got to the point where
Oh no, you good. You did good. You ain't even gotta do no more. You did good, right? So you disagree with that. So what was it in the 60s, right? Starting in with the Kennedy administration, right? What was it in the 60s that made them start saying we have to start making these initiatives so Black people can start participating? What was going on, since you disagree with it now?
I'm not even going to answer that. Here's why.
Okay.
We ain't in the 60s. Why do
So,
I need to pretend like I'm in the social climate of the 60s?
Okay. So
To explain what DEI is doing for Black people in 2024.
So you think that we should get rid of the gangs and stuff that we that we got from the civil rights movement because we in 2024?
Did I say that?
No, that's what I'm getting from you.
No,
You
I
saying
didn't.
I'm not in the 60s. You said I'm not in the 60s.
I didn't
so
say
you
that.
saying, all right, so what do you say?
So instead of bringing what your evidence is or what it does, right? And I'm telling you, it's not doing what you think it does, right? And I can show you what it's actually doing, and you didn't bring what it is doing. You were just gonna question me on what I think it is and what I think it does, but you're not gonna show.
Because
I'm just trying to figure out what we're doing right here.
Because I still don't think you got a firm grasp on it, right?
Okay.
Because now you're talking, the current push against DEI is this new corporate shit that's
that's actually what we're talking about when they're talking about dissolving DEI. They're not talking about the 1960s. They're talking about policies and initiatives from today.
Yeah. So that's the whole thing. But see, that's the small attack to attack the bigger situation. It's almost like the same thing what they did with affirmative action in the schools. They can take something small and specific that people can get in line with, and then they'll use that as the catalyst to destroy something bigger. And y'all participate in the shit. That's the whole thing. You don't see the play, my nigga. You don't see the play.
Say that one more time. I'm gonna make sure I heard you correctly because I was still shaking my head at.
Right, you wasn't even.
Go ahead.
All right, so I'm saying they'll take a issue, right, that we all can say, yeah, that ain't right, and they'll use that small issue to destroy the bigger game, right? They don't agree with affirmative action and all of that shit already, right? We know they got an issue with that. So they'll use these things like the George Floyd thing where everybody just zapped out, right? And they say, oh, we got to do something for Black people. We got to be more inclusive, right? So corporations and everything, they said, man, we're going to tackle this within our human resources, right? We're going to start bringing in people who can speak to diversity and make these workplaces a little bit more comfortable for diversity. Right? These were the things that they were trying to do. I think I explained this earlier on when we was in the Discord. I don't know if you was in there or you left, right? When I start talking about how my job that I currently have, it was some type of DEI initiative to get more diversity amongst the education staff, right? And I talked about how even within the barbering industry within all states basically follow, hold on, if you can see the screen, right? We follow this curriculum, the Milady Standard, right? Now, within this Milady Standard, you only have around 2 pages that actually address your hair, all right? You only have like 2 pages that addresses your hair. Everything else that we learn is predicated on white hair. There's no diversity in it. to get my state board license and my master's, right? Let me get this. You see this?
Yeah.
You see this? This is what we gotta do. This is what we gotta do.
Oh my God.
Listen.
Our
whole curriculum. Our whole
it hurt. I'm
curriculum.
laughing so hard.
Hold on. Our whole. So when y'all say get rid of DI, listen. Our whole curriculum is based off of this, right? It's based off of this. I have to not. I don't have to be able.
Can you put that mannequin head down, please? I'm trying
to. Hold on. I don't have to be a. Listen, the standard of barbering is not if I can cut logic hair, right? I can't get a license just knowing how to cut your hair. They don't give a fuck about that. I gotta be able to cut this motherfucker hair, right? In order to get my license.
Hey, watch the language though, bro. Come on, man.
No, I'm sorry. So within my curriculum, and it's not only that, right? Okay. Hold on.
Now this chef's side, this is Chef explaining diversity, equity, and inclusion to y'all right here, right?
You see this?
He's showing us Jesus heads with the long hair and the short hair, right?
Let me get to it.
Matter of fact, he's showing us Jesus from the 60s, and then we got cool hippie Jesus from 2024 right here, right? That's what we got. That's what we looking at.
Check it out. This is what we have to do, right? Within the barbering, and I'm in a black city, right? So forget about so think about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Do you think that we should get rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion when, my nigga, don't you go to the barbershop? Don't you know every black man on this that's in the chat go to the barbershop? And getting a license is not predicated on nothing about you. You understand that? That's crazy. Listen, I have to do a 14-point shave on a person's face. Do you know black men, for the most part, don't even get a razor on their face? The 14-point shave will bump us up, right? It will cause what you call pseudo folliculitis, right? I gotta cut a tapered hair.
It's called pseudo what?
Pseudo folliculitis barbe. All right. Now I have to cut this white man hair in layers and a tapered haircut with shears. This is what I got to do to get my license. Then I got to take a white man and I got to be able to shave his face in a 14-point shave. Then I got to take another straight haired mannequin, right? And put perm rods in it to make their hair curly. Nothing about my test or the procedure has anything to do with black people, Hispanic people, or nobody else. Do you think that that is diverse? Hello?
I think what you are describing is what your interpretation of diversity, equitable, inclusion protocols should be.
So is it diverse? Hold on. Is it diverse? What I just explained to you, do it explain diversity?
To me, is where you actually losing the whole point. Because I'm not the person who enforces. I just listen to everything and I watch you hold up them crazy heads and everything. So now let me explain to you what I'm saying again. Right? I am not the authority on what a diverse work culture looks like. I don't write the guidelines. So what you're talking about, what we need are the guidelines that we are currently using for a diverse workplace, not what I think a diverse workplace is. We're talking about other companies and corporations being compliant with the EEOC when they call themselves a diverse workplace, and they are incentivized monetarily. How they qualify for those monetary consignments is compliance. And so it has nothing to do with what I think a diverse workplace is. It's all about being compliant. It has nothing to do with what I think an inclusive workplace is. It's all about.
So before my company hired me and another teacher, there was no black teachers. There was no black teachers, right? So through this, I think I started there 3 years ago. This was right after the George Floyd, when everybody was trying to do these, what you call these DEI. They went and got their human resources, right? And they came around and they talked to people like me and see if I would be interested. They gave us different incentive packages. And for a barber, you thinking, yeah, a job like that, paying that amount, I can move some shit around like that, and you know what I mean? Get some different insurances and stuff that people like you probably already get off your job. A barber got to do all that stuff himself, right? So it was more incentive for me to do it, but I knew why they was doing it.
No,
right?
You didn't.
Yes, I did.
No, you don't.
They told me. The other teachers told me that the other students, the students were complaining that there was nobody there to teach them how to cut ethnic hair. That the only thing that they was learning was how to cut. Go ahead.
Let me cut you off. Let me tell you how you actually contradicting yourself and you defeating everything that you think you're saying.
Go ahead.
You know why? Because that book right there is in compliance with DEI. And you asking me, do I think it's compliant? But let me tell you how I know it is, because DEI has been in existence for the last 50 years. Unless that book is older than 50 years old.
No, they updated every 10 years.
Well, then guess what? There is a governing body over the people who produce that book that look at that book and say it's compliant.
All right, so now I know you don't know what
you're talking about. Now do you understand how the current iteration of DEI does not do what you think it's supposed to do? See, you think that since you're a black barber, that you should have 20 to 30, 40 pages in there about black hair. But since you're not the one who sets the compliance, see, you're not in control of this governing body. You're not the one that's sitting back behind the scenes making 2, 3, sometimes 4, 500,000 to actually put the regulations on what DEI compliance is.
So we need more participation, is what you're saying.
It all needs to be reformed. I could easily say that, right? I'm trying to keep it real simple. But since you're saying that we need it, and guess what? We got it, and it produced a book just like that.
No, so if the government don't regulate this book or standard,
companies do.
Yeah, companies do.
Let's go down the food. Let's go down the chain. Companies do that, right?
Companies.
So then there's another commission in charge of companies to make sure that their practices.
No, hold on. It's different barber curriculums and books, right? Now the state regulates barbering, right? It's not a federal thing. The federal is only in charge of your OSHA practices, right? Whether you are following safety guidelines, all right? But the barber license is controlled by the state, right? So the state don't care. The state is only worried about if you are in compliance with the federal, right? And you can do these certain procedures. That's it.
Who produces the book? Does the state produce the book?
No, these are private companies.
So do the private companies, do they have to register with the federal government?
Not to sell their book. No, not to sell their book, the barber and cosmetology programs. No,
are you sure about that?
I'm positive. Bro, I can write a goddamn barber book, and if the school that I teach at
so you're not familiar with how the EEOC works then?
What could you possibly be talking about?
I'm saying I'm saying it's still under it's under some kind of regulation, right? Now, all corporations haven't
Maybe I
I
shouldn't have
guess they
used
don't have
barbering
a
because
commission that like specifically for DEI, right?
Mhm.
But it's incentivized, not necessarily regulated, as you would say, right? It's highly incentivized for companies to be in
I'm
DEI compliance monetarily,
okay.
right?
I'm showing you when you say that DEI don't do what it's supposed to do, right? I'm showing you that it does, especially in the case of my profession. When we are underrepresented and there was no diversity in it. Now we have more diversity. Now students can learn how to cut different textures of hair, right? These students are paying $22,000, right, to complete these programs with no diversity. So why wouldn't you need DEI for something like that? Why would you now in any other industry that you're talking about, you might can point to it and say they don't need it. But I'm proving to you within my field, you definitely need DEI. You definitely need it. How else would you account to deal with different people's hair, their texture, their skin, all of these things, if you don't have that diversity? Right? If you don't have the equity, right? Everybody having an equal share, right? And what's being taught and learned. You know what I mean? Why would you think we didn't need that? I don't get it.
I'm still trying to figure out why you got the Jesus heads, and I'm still trying to figure out why you only got 2 pages in the book when DEI has been in full effect for 50 years. I'm still trying to figure that out.
See, that's the whole thing. It's not about
If it's working the way you saying it's working.
No,
I'm
I didn't
trying
say
to
it was
figure out how
bro,
you coming up short.
No,
right here.
listen, bro. I didn't say it was perfect, right? I'm saying we need it, right? Stuff like that shows you that we need it, right?
But we have it. We have it.
Oh, all right. So why you saying we don't? We should get rid of it? You're fighting against DEI.
I didn't say we should get rid of it. I clearly said we need to reform it. I clearly said that.
Oh, okay. Well,
Clearly
I'm cool
said
with
that.
that.
And then I went on to say it doesn't do what you thinking it does, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Which is in this particular specific scenario, you're telling me that it should produce books that incorporate more Black people hair,
Mm-hmm.
which it does not.
Mm-hmm.
But we've had it for 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
So in 50 years, do you think it should have caught up to an industry like barbering?
Well, it goes back and forth, right? The older books from the 70s actually did have more chapters in there that dealt with ethnic hair. Then moving into the editions that came out in the mid 80s, right? Because it's different standards, different editions. So when the different standards start coming out in the 80s, I mean the different editions, they kind of went away. It struck down again. You dig what I'm saying? And now in this current iteration that we're using now, is next to nothing. Yeah, it's crazy. You know what I mean? And then I say this logic, and I'm in total agreements with you that
no, I don't agree with me. I don't want you to agree with me.
It should be reformed. If you're saying that, if you're saying we shouldn't get rid of it, that we need to reform it, then I totally agree.
So once we reform it, we're basically going to be looking at something totally different, and you probably wouldn't even call it you wouldn't call it diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Because the first problem with diversity, equity, and inclusion is the word equity. Are you familiar with that at all? See, it's a damn shame, yo.
What happened?
It made me feel like you didn't respect my ability to at least comprehend what I'm looking at enough to understand that much of it, yo.
No,
Same.
I did. I thought you was on the chief.
Are you familiar with the
stuff.
difference between equity and equality?
No, listen. Well, I thought that when they was posting all of them videos and stuff in there, I thought you was on that side. You feel me? You never explained your motherfucking self.
Nah, I wanted to save it for Friday. I wanted to have a live conversation, so our stuff could be purely organic.
Yeah, but then you said now this is disingenuous at this point, because you were saying we're going to debate it, saying, Chef, if you agree with it, then I want to debate you. Let's have a debate on it. That means that you are opposed to it.
I mean, still, how you still gonna debate me and you didn't bring no data? Or you brought anecdotal stuff for your personal experience.
I just killed you.
How you killed me with the Jesus hands?
Yeah, it's over.
Nah.
You know what you just said? You said you just want to. You just said you wanted to reform it. You don't want to get rid of it.
Okay. Your stance is we need it. So what do we need? You had every chance in the world to say we don't need it, but you didn't. No, you say we need it.
We need
so
it.
That tells me, without you trying to wiggle out of it, that tells me that what you have is working just fine. No. And I'm saying what we need is something different than what we have, because what we have is not working.
No. So
I'm clearly saying that. You're not saying that. You say we need it.
Yeah, we need.
I would agree. Now, look, if you said we need something, I'd have said, yeah, we need something. But what you said we need was DEI.
So DEI, right? DEI is attached to historically is attached to affirmative action, right? So in that vein, you saying no, it's not?
I was responding to Sosa.
Oh,
I was responding to Sosa.
In that vein, I'm looking at it like y'all are attacking civil rights, affirmative action, things like that. The byproducts that came from the civil rights bills and things like that. That's how I felt as though that what you was attacking. So I'm on guard against that type of shit.
Diversity, equity, inclusion, which is what you said we need, is not what I'm saying we need.
I'm sticking to it.
Right? So okay, I'm cool. Right now, I'm addressing Sosa real quick because I'm about to drop the link. We getting right where, you know, I think we done both put our points out there and we gonna have a conversation. And I'm still like got a lot of stuff that I could present in my pocket, but you really haven't.
No,
you haven't like brought it out. I think somebody else gonna come up here and make it necessary for me to have to make some of this stuff. Because I guess at this point, it's not even like you kind of didn't even bring nothing, right? So what I'm saying that we need, and no, first of all, I gotta clarify what DEI does, right?
Okay.
DEI is concerned about hiring, and is concerned about collegiate placement, right? I'm saying what we need is better quality education, K through 12. You probably would even call something like that DEI, right? Because those schools could stay predominantly black. You know, it wouldn't be the same thing, right? That's what I'm saying. We need hits, right? You on the panel, you can easily hit the button. Right?
I don't know what you're talking about.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. I get that from some of the issues that people have, right? Let's say we're talking about engineering again. So when you're talking about that hiring, right? So what DEI does is it puts a person's race. That's cool. That puts a person's race at the forefront of how they go about being selected as a candidate for a job, right?
They should consider it.
How they should consider it?
Yes.
Fair enough, right? So what it does is
now we got a clear disagreement.
I didn't say they shouldn't consider it. I said fair enough.
What the hell, Logic?
I said the main thing they consider. Did I say main thing? Well, in this case, let me clarify if I didn't say it. The main thing they consider is their ethnic group, racial category. Right? That's what DEI does.
Now, I don't
right?
know if it should be the main thing, but it should be.
Okay, now we do agree because I don't think it should be the main thing.
Yeah, but I think
so,
it should.
And that's the same thing when it comes to collegiate placement, right? It puts a person's ability to be at specific schools. It puts their race at the forefront of how they qualify as a candidate to go to that specific school. I don't think their race should matter that much. I think their test score should matter a lot more.
I
right?
do too.
And so how would we raise those test scores?
Yeah. I'm
test scores is better quality education K through 12. That's simple.
I'm with you on that, but I think I'm saying that if a person is within the ballpark, right, of meeting the requirements, right, and you have to start looking at other things, right? Say, okay, let me see their ethnic background, right? Their family's financial history. How many people in their family have higher education? Those type of things should be considered. You dig what I'm saying? Because knowing if a person come from a poor socioeconomic background, they might not have gotten the best education. But if they close, you dig what I'm saying? The school can say, we can bring that person up to standard. Now, if you way off, they can say they ain't got time for that. But if you're within the ballpark, they can say this is a person that we can work with, and they can take their historical neglect of that community. They can take that into consideration, right? And say that maybe they didn't meet the mark because of these social factors. You know what I mean? That are historically on on this group of people, right? Why wouldn't they be able to do that? Do you agree that should be taken into consideration? If the person is damn near there, Elijah, you dig what I'm saying? You on mute.
Trimedia Records.
This is my story. Get the story.
On your ID, you see me calling, nigga. Out of this league, a workaholic, nigga. Nickname, big game, big thing. Handle his business, he never switched lanes. Had some brain surgeries in high school. Still came out that bitch a top dude. Moved to the city of the Mavericks. Came out this bitch drunk and classy.
To the leadership of Steph Curry and Draymond. He don't care. He probably was like, hey, Jonathan Kuminga just came off the best game of the season. Go ahead and let him cook. Yeah. I'll come in off the bench. And again, it's not who started. He's got this calf injury too. It's coming back. I've missed a couple.
Oh man, I was going ham just now. Damn, where was I? Shout out to DQ again, man. We definitely having a good show. I'm dropping a link. I want y'all to come up here and voice y'all opinions. I'm definitely interested in hearing some of the pushback, which is cool because I'm really still like, you know, I ain't really even said nothing yet. Like all I basically said was that Chef's book would still need to be in compliance with federal law. Not really sure how you could dispute that. I said that that DEI puts a person's racial category, ethnicity, at the forefront of their qualifications, right? And I think that their test scores should be more important, right, than their race. When you actually make their race that important, I think you shine a light on what race a person is rather than how qualified they are for the job. Now, I also understand the other side of that conversation with understanding those disparities could be what caused that test score to be a little bit lower. I'm getting to your question too, Chef. I ain't forgot what it is.
Okay.
But then I go right back full circle to what I think solves the issue. Or not necessarily completely solves the issue, but I think it brings it. I think it brings it to where it makes more sense to me, rather than making exceptions. Go right back to where I started at the very beginning. And if I gave you $1 billion, $2 billion, would you use it to create programs that create exceptions, or would you use it to upgrade the quality of education K through 12 so you could have more qualified participants? And I'm on the side of the qualified participants. I'm cool if you disagree with that. I'm cool with that. Like if that's what if you think the current iteration of DEI is doing so much and we need it like that, I'm just saying bring the info, yo. That's all.
Logic, I'm cool with your position, though, for real.
I don't want you to be cool with it.
I
We supposed to
mean,
be disagreeing, yo.
yeah,
It's hard to disagree with that. It
we
makes
just-
sense, right?
Yeah.
I can respect that. I can respect it.
I mean, saying it needs to be reformed, you dig what I'm saying? I think it's a lot of things that I wouldn't get rid of, but I think it needs to be reformed to better address our issues, right? So yeah, I ain't got no issue with that. You know what I mean? Truthfully. I thought you
I supposed to be debating, man.
That's why Chief X should have came up here, because he brought the complete conservative view of that shit. You dig what I'm saying? You know, he brought the MAGA rhetoric to the situation. You know what I mean? But I definitely put some shit together. You dig what I'm saying?
You know what's crazy too? Because I can clearly remember you stating, "Oh, you ain't gonna agree with my position. Logic is tripping." I heard all of that.
Because y'all fail to realize when I say I don't read shit to like y'all sources and shit that y'all both, I don't. I just look at what y'all type with y'all own hands, and I respond to that, and I jump to conclusions. You know what I mean? That's what I do. You know what I mean? That's a part of my my whole what you call it, my YouTube shtick. That's part of my shtick. I like to jump to conclusions and jump out there. You feel me? What's up, Joe?
Peace to y'all, brothers, man. This is a good conversation y'all got going on here. Hey,
you think
get
about it,
out,
Joe?
Logic making Chef's point, man.
What do you think
No,
we had,
in all
Joe? How far off
seriousness.
am I, man?
Huh? What's going on?
Yeah, how far off am I, man?
I don't think you're real far off. Let me understand something from you, though. So are you saying that DEI needs to be reformed because it's not effective, or are you saying that the African American community don't need it? Let me understand that first.
It will also influence their academic success.
So, if I heard you correctly, did I say so? DEI is not effective. I heard you say that, right?
Right. That's what I'm asking. Is that your pushback?
I don't think it's effective. I don't think it's effective. I can give you a bunch of different examples how, and
Okay.
There's an easy example. If you have 100 employees at your job, and 30 of them is janitors, and all the janitors are black, do you have a diverse workplace?
That's not a good example for DEI.
That's a great example.
Oh. Okay,
Answer
all
the
right. So
question: Is
I
your
feel like you don't
workplace
really
diverse?
understand it. Then I feel like you don't really understand it.
No, I definitely understand it because I'm trying to explain to you it does not it doesn't go as far as to like mandate specific positions within a corporation,
It's not
right?
supposed to.
It doesn't do anything besides get your foot in the door. Now, once you in the door, if you stay a janitor for 40, 50 years, that company still is in compliance.
No. Okay, wait a minute. Hold up. All right. All right. Let me do this then. Let me explain my understanding. So, because it may help with the conversation. So, affirmative action pretty much is what you're describing, where affirmative action pretty much said you just need to be able to diversify your workforce. So, because you have so many European background employees, you need to mix that up with women, Asian, First Nations people, and African American. Okay, all right. And so what DEI does is DEI says, okay, so that's not good enough. What you need to do is revamp the workplace so it's inclusive. So it's DEI is not just bringing in people. DEI is saying that you need to get rid of actions in the workplace that discriminate. You need to get rid of policies in your lineup that outs people. You need to make sure that like when your employees are working, they're in a environment that they don't feel discriminated against. That's what DEI does. It's DEI is not about simply getting people in the door. It's about creating an environment
It
that the
is
people are
about
able to
getting people
function
in the
well.
door. That's why I called it theater. It's really
Okay.
it's oddly enough, like when you really get into the details, it's very difficult to regulate. Like it's not, as Hits posted not too long ago, it's not law. Like it's really incentivized, but not necessarily like, I mean, there are punishments and nothing like that, and things like that. But again, for what's on the table for you to comply with these things, it doesn't say anything about raises. It doesn't say anything about positions or management.
You're making my point. You're making my point.
Again, it's really the bare minimum.
No, you're not. Okay.
It
Let me
is.
see if I can find
And
an
not
article.
only is it the bare minimum, but it also includes other groups than Black people, right? So in that example I gave you with 100 employees, and I said 30 of them are janitors, and the janitors are all Black. Let's say if you got 5 Black janitors, and you got 15 Chinese janitors, and then you got another what I say 30, I'm at 20. So if I got 10 more Chinese or Mexican janitors, then you got minorities working for you. It didn't say nothing about training them to become for vertical integration. You are
Darn
considered a
you,
diverse
Logic. Darn
workplace.
you. You come back to that. You're so funny.
But I'm telling you that's what it is, right? Like that is what you're telling me. Oh, we gotta have that. That's what you're telling me. And I keep
No,
telling
that's
you,
not what I
and I keep
said.
telling you it's not doing what you think it's doing, and you not like dang, so what is it doing? Well, I'm explaining it to you. It's creating diverse workplaces. So I'm asking you the question which you have not answered yet. If I have 100 employees and 30 of them is minorities, is my workplace diverse?
But that's a horrible question because
It's not a horrible question
it's
because
not based on what they're
DEI
doing,
is
man.
vague like that.
Oh, shoot.
That's how people use it.
You're looking at one facet of it,
No, I'm not.
and you messing it up. I gave you a prime example of how DEI at my job works, right? And for some reason, you went around it, right? Like
I didn't go around it. Here's how I didn't go around it. You can wake up in the morning, or probably Monday, since it's a government entity, and call the EEOC, tell them what book you're using, and have them make sure it's in compliance.
What?
Case closed.
No, bro. I work for a private entity. What are you talking? There's no state-run cosmetology program.
If you have grievances about equity and diversion in the workplace, about discrimination in the workplace, right? If you are considering,
they are addressing it. They bringing people like me
considering
in
that
to
book
address
to
it.
be discrimination, you can take your grievance right to the EEOC.
I don't think you get it. You don't understand what I'm putting down.
Okay, I'm gonna be quiet and listen and tell me how.
I'm saying that the way that they are addressing it, right? Remember, we are a small portion of the population, right? So they're figuring that there's enough within the curriculum that kind of address for this small population enough of the situation. So the company decides, right, we have African Americans, we have Latins, right? So they brought in somebody who speaks Spanish, right? That is about making everybody have a stake in it. And you're saying that I don't get it. I don't get it. I'm done.
I'm saying if it's not up to your liking, there's another regulatory body that does hold a standard for
Bro,
what
I'm not in Africa. Listen, I'm not in Africa. So it's never going to be 100% what I wanted. You feel me? But the fact that they are bringing people in that can address the needs of the African American students or the people that want to cut curly textured hair, that's what they're doing. You feel me? That's the DEI.
And I'm saying the same thing you're telling me is a viable argument that you can bring to the people who actually regulate discrimination in the workplace. You could call them up and say, hey, we cut 95% black people nappy heads.
I don't cut no nappy heads.
I see, you know what? I said black people with nappy heads. I take that back. All black people don't got nappy heads. I ain't trying to be racist or inflammatory. But what I'm saying is if it's not meeting the demographic criteria of your location, see, I gotta get all eloquent on you since you're trying to be all political right now. So so I'm saying you actually could bring that grievance. If you consider that discrimination of any kind, there's some people who hold that standard.
I feel as though they're addressing it.
Right? There's some people who actually hold that standard for you. You could call them with your grievance in the workplace and have them sort that out for you.
They're sorting it. That's why I'm there.
What up, Hits?
That's what's up, y'all. How y'all doing, man?
Man, I seen you had some on the
screen. Where you been at, Hits?
Peace, peace,
I can't say black people got nappy hair. I can't even say black people got nappy hair. See what DEI did for y'all, man. I could have sworn our nappy hair was our thing. We supposed to be in love with ourselves, in love with our naps and our dark skin and all that. Here we go. Now you're offended because I said black people.
No, I was just in the background trying to, do some background stuff.
I'm offended by that mannequin head Chef had on the screen. That
was Jesus.
Why you calling mannequin Jesus, yo?
That was Jesus. You were burned. You were burned for that, but
yeah, he going straight. He can't pass go or collect you, honey.
Man.
Peace, Chef. Sosa,
Peace, Chef.
Joel, my brother Logic, peace to our brother Brass and DQ. Everybody in the chat. Again, if you have a channel, put it in the chat. Peace to the mods. Thank y'all, always for stopping in to hang out with us. And that's it, Logic, man. And we need some DEI and Tri Media, damn it, because this age thing, age
We
is
definitely do. We definitely need some
we're gonna do some
diversity in
DEI and
media.
Tri Media
You
because
know,
this
and Tri
age
Media.
thing gonna stop. And I think what Chef was referencing earlier about having some older people, and there's certain people in the chat that think the older people always reference civil rights and things that far away. I assure you that's not the case. A lot of us are, and even in Tri Media, we're looking forward to 2025. So no one's living in 1964, 74, or even any place close to that. Chef standards, I'm sure, in this shop are up to date by 2024 standards. We're operating on equipment right now that's the latest in, some of the technology. So no one's stuck in the 60s and 70s. So we can get that shit up out of here, right? So we're gonna stop
Thank
all
you.
that.
Much appreciated.
I'm just gonna share my screen real quick, and I know Logic asked questions. How is some of this stuff beneficial, right? And I know not everyone, but most of us here either participate in capitalism or are subject to it. It's how we make our livelihood. So we can start with money, right? Let's just start with money. How is having a diverse now, this may not be, are you forcing people to have these policies? Is it law? This is just what a diverse workforce can do. And Forbes, top 100 companies in the Fortune 500 have diverse boards. The top 100 have more diverse boards than the other 400. It doesn't say 100 out of 500. What does it say? The top 100. And that's from Forbes. You can go to Martech, and this article is 2022. And this is the second page of it. Ethnically diverse companies are 35% more likely to yield higher revenue, while gender diverse companies are 15% more likely. Let's see what we got. And you can just read through these if you want. I just wanted to put it up. 69% of brands with the most diversity and inclusion in their ads saw an average stock gain of 44%. So anybody who invests, have a 401k, IRAs, things like that, you want to know what stocks are doing. So from a business aspect, whether they have DI programs or not, diversity does help your bottom line. Harvard Business Review, Heat Test Report, Deloitte, McKinsey. Those are the links for that. So those are real numbers. And this is a recent article, right? So let me stop sharing. And let's look at a quick definition real quick, a working definition. I think would make it easier for some of us to relate, right? Let's go to this. I may have to zoom in on this, I'm sorry. But just a quick working definition. It stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's an organizational framework. Organizational framework. It's not a law. It's not a policy. It's nothing that's forced on any company or agency, even though they have already laws provided for anti-discrimination and things like that. That aims to foster fairness and inclusivity.
That's what I was saying earlier.
Right? And hold on, there's a key word in here that I just wanted to find. And it's basically based on people who are historically adversely or have been discriminated against. Historically. This shit doesn't come out of nowhere. No one wakes up in the morning. CEOs don't wake up in the morning and go, hey, you know what we should do? Just make everyone's life miserable. Let's just come up with new policies, make people sit in rooms and learn how to, have respect for people, understand the diverse environment that we have. One, it's good for business. Two, we don't need lawsuits. Speaking of lawsuits, where is it at? Here we go. $36 million. EEOC, that's what Logic was talking about. The government agency. And we can look at that real quick. I'm just going on spiel, then I'm going back in the back. But $36 million, and this was about a truck driver who wasn't accommodated for his hearing. I think he was deaf or partially deaf. Who is deaf for a truck driving job right here? Victor Robinson, who was deaf for a truck driving job. They failed to hire him. $36 million. And that resonated with me, not because I'm deaf, but because I'm a professional driver. If you have a CDO, you're a professional driver, trucking company. So this can not only benefit your bottom line, this can, without swearing, tear your bottom line up. $36 million. And if you invest in this company, I'm sure the investors is not happy when you see shit like this. You don't want to see discrimination. You don't want to see $36 million. And you don't want to see that a government agency, was involved, and a jury. So these are just some things. Having a good DEI policy can make you money, can save you money. It can protect your image. It can protect your investors, which is what? The lifeline, customers, consumers. They're the lifeline of any business, right? So just some other ways to look at it. And let's not forget, it is not a law. It is not a policy. These are initiatives that companies take on, and they use ISO standards, most of them. And these are, just a group of people who come together from businesses all over and try to set standards for the certain industries. Just different things to keep in mind, right? So one, no one's living in the past, but you do need historical context. Stats and data, super important. And you can only get that through historical information. You can't have data based on the last 24 hours. You can't determine disparity unless you have data based over certain periods of time. So you won't even know if you're affected positively or negatively, or historically, unless you use data over a period of time. So for all of y'all talking about us old heads, back off, and we will have a DEI program in place at Tri-Media in 2025. That's all.
I got something I'd like to read after the next person goes.
Yeah. Good show. I just want to say too, if you look at I don't know if you're familiar with the Rooney Rule logic. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Isn't that where the NFL has to interview minority coaches?
Right.
But also does not specifically have to hire them. They just have to be, included in the process.
Right. But that and for end up being expanded also to office, office position to higher positions in office, expanding it, right? So that is also what led to a lot of the black coaches getting jobs in the NFL. The black coaches that you see getting those jobs, right, were brought about through those initiatives. Now the pushback or the where it would fail would be like, because like you just said, some of those were just superficial, right? They were just giving an interview without even actually considering for the job, right? So that's the backlash in it. But the positive come from that is that it did allow African Americans getting their foot in the door, right? To demonstrate, right? Because at that time too, there was, we had all type of things going on, even with the black quarterback, the things about IQ and non-intelligent enough. So once people got in that field and were able to garner success in it, it opened the door for more African American people to get those types of jobs. And once you're in there from a head coach position, you get the opportunity to hire African American staff, like African American, offensive coordinators, such and such, right? So I think all that is part and parcel for the course. And it's like, if you then agree, right? Because I thought your argument was that we don't need it. And I'm like, if you don't need it, then you can't argue that we need to reform it. You see what I'm saying? Because you don't reform something you don't need it. You because on one hand, you either got to argue replace it, you know what I mean, or reform it. But reform is still saying, reform is like saying, I can agree that we need it. I just can agree that it needs to be tweaked. So I'm saying,
Yeah. I guess just
I
to
thought
clarify
you were a
that,
little
yeah,
wavery, a little shaky in your argument right
I
there.
could never say we don't need something, right? I know we need something, and I'm just through just a little bit of reading, right, and just trying to get through some of the information, looking at the current iteration of DEI, and not necessarily how it's worded, but how it's implemented, and then looking at the data behind some of the things that should have closed by now, such as like the wealth gap, such as like managerial positions, such as like income, such as like home ownership, such as like education quality. You got all these things that it does not address. Right? That's like the reason why it's very easy for me to say we don't need DEI. Now, with that being said,
you can have both.
Okay, I think I understand.
Why not both?
Saying we don't need something.
No, why not both? Why
but
not?
I'm saying DEI has not done.
Yeah, why not both, Logic?
Yeah, why not both?
What you mean, why not both?
The DEI to implement what you're saying in education for K through 12, but also because the DEI is not just, you said it was race first. It's not just race first. It's basically also considering socioeconomic abilities. Like, in other words, if I had the same skill set and I come from HBCU, and and somebody has that same skill set and they said they went to Princeton, then you're judging me on the same. You're not downgrading me because of my socioeconomic status. So that's another person where DEI would come.
I totally get you, right? So my answer, or why I feel like my answer is easy, is because I don't feel like DEI addresses those issues that cause us to be easily written off as disqualified, right? That puts us in a position to where we're scoring on the borderline, not quite there, and then they make an exception for us to be there because of our race or cultural background, so on and so social background.
But that's not always the case. Sometimes
So I also understand. I also understand when you're talking about social economic issues, there generally is no simple answer.
Yeah, but
right?
I'm saying no.
Hold on, let me finish this.
Let me finish this. I'm almost education level. Just
I'm almost finished, right? So if I had to choose between something that incentivizes corporations to be vaguely diverse, and when I say vague, I'm meaning again, they could all be janitors. It doesn't mean none of them are managers. It doesn't mean that you ever promote none. It doesn't mean that you ever give none a raise. It doesn't mean that they're in and out the door. It just means that you have hired enough to meet whatever this initiative needs for you to meet it, right? That I'm saying I would much rather take that. And then, of course, you're talking about allocation of funds. So in order to have things like that in place, you need to hire a person who oversees a department like that. And let's use an extreme example of somebody who makes $400,000, $500,000 a year to oversee a DEI policies within a particular work environment, right? Let's say you're talking about a couple corporations that do that, and they could easily add up to $1 billion or more dollars of people who they are paying to enforce or to promote DEI within a company. I'd rather take that $2 billion and create better and attempt to address some of those initial problems that DEI fails to address. You get what I'm saying? That's just me. I would much rather have the better education, the better housing community, put that money back into the Black people neighborhood, rather than leave it out there for minorities and potentially let a lot of white women get it. I mean, I don't mean to say it just like that. That's certainly not what we are hoping that it does, and it actually does do. Go ahead.
What would that do for a master's I have my master's from Howard, and you have your master's from Princeton. That's like, what would that do though? Like,
Hold on a
that's
second. Logic, you flying through like 4 different
a bunch of red
topics.
lights.
No, you're flying through like 4 different topics, right? Let's take a question like, how has DEI policies? We have to stop speaking about it like it's laws and they had to be put in place and they were set up to have certain metrics and criteria, right? They are generalized. There is no national standard. We already saw that. There is no industry standards. It's going to change depending on industry, right? So let's look at some things that may be examples of how these things didn't do. Some of your examples was what? Close the wealth gap. And I think you had a few other examples, right? Let me just share.
I'm glad you brought it up. Go ahead. You
No,
share
hold
first,
on,
and I'll
right?
share second.
So how could
but I'm
some of
listening.
these
I'm listening for the
programs,
chat.
right?
All right, bro. Appreciate you for coming up, bro.
All right, bro. How can some of these programs be circumvented? That was a question that I asked my notebook LM. I have a bunch of my sources over here. But through legal challenges. If you can afford it, if your company is large enough or your agency is large enough or your college or whatever different platforms, you know, that or avenues that you want to take, if you can afford it, you can legally challenge it. That's how the initiatives don't get met, through law and through legislation. If you challenge it legally and you could force laws against it, that's how you won't meet your goal.
So right now you're showing me loopholes that companies can actually take to get around
because your
DEI,
question
right?
was, it didn't fix what it was set out to fix. My next question would be why? Because it don't work. Having diverse workforces don't work. We already saw numbers from Fortune 500 companies that having diversity does work for the bottom line. But in some of the other areas that you mentioned, right, or may mention coming up, why didn't it work? Law, legal challenges, legislation, enforcement, oversight. To enforce the law, you need enforcement protocols, probably manpower, all of these things. If it's weakly enforced, another way you can circumvent what it was proposed to do. Shifting definitions and focus, arguing the point. Well, what does this mean? What does that mean? Interpretation. Well, what does that mean? I have to provide a space for a Muslim to pray. Does it have to be 6 by 8? Does it have to be a room? Does it have to be on the clock, off the clock? Resistance from institutions and individuals, right? Other ways you can circumvent it. Criticism and backlash. We get that in the chat sometimes, right? Criticizing it. So these are all ways you can circumvent the results of what some of these things are supposed to do. And it happens. This ain't just some of the ways. This shit happens. Right? I'll give you a simple example, right? How a company can take an initiative and just F it all up. Logic has to be on the clock when he comes in the building, right? Soon as you come in that building, you have to be on the clock. They know when you come in the building, you punch in, you mosey your ass to the locker room, you take your time changing your uniform, you go to the bathroom, you're putting your lunch, all of this that they're paying you for, right? You on the clock. Because that time clock is right at the front of the building. All of these things. So now you spend 45 minutes doing all that. Now to you, that's no big deal. Do that over 100 employees, over 40 hours a week, over 52 weeks in a year. Shit adds up. So a company can look at that and go, you know what? You got to come to work with your uniform. You got to bring your own cooler. So now the minute you clock in, your ass is working. Because they can get rid of all of that just to change a metric. So there are ways to do it. The law says when that man shows up for work, he has to get paid. And they know you bullshitting for the first 45 minutes. They can make you do all your bullshit elsewhere. So this is just few examples of how you can circumvent, slow down, prevent, weaken, or give resistance so that certain things do not happen and they don't work out for their intended purposes. Go ahead, bro.
Right. I appreciate that, right? And I think you just added a lot of clarity to probably both sides of the argument, right? I think a lot of people have been asking me, hey, what does it do? And I've been trying to be real simplistic and just say I know it's not doing what you're assuming it's doing. And whole time I'm actually sitting, I'm sitting with all the definitions and stuff in the background and really kind of like doing my best to bring out a good argument, counter enough to where now it's necessary for me to have to go in and show something, right? Now, so what Hits is basically saying, what I think it agrees with what I'm saying for the most part, right? It shows how DEI is not some strict rule, policy, law that is now, making it easy for Black people to become CEOs or manager positions or get raises or all that kind of stuff in a corporate environment. It does, however, it does incentivize companies to get their foot in the door. But as you can see, there are plenty of ways around it, right? Especially when it comes to interpreting something that's not quote unquote heavily enforced. But I'm sure you can find isolated incidents where like you showed, with lawsuit about people who actually have been able to use it. Akbar, I've never seen you before, man. Turn your camera on so I can know who you are. But I'm about to share my screen too.
Let me go in after your next guest, Logic.
Okay, I'm gonna be real quick right here, right? So I've been making the case about it doesn't address some of the root causes, right? And one of the first things that ChatGPT brings up is the school systems, right? We are still in an environment after 50 years of DEI where this system is able to circumvent some of the, initiatives of DEI. And I'm not saying circumvent, that's probably the wrong word, but how DEI has not properly addressed, I can just read it, right? Does not properly address some of the root causes of these inequalities, right? So if we're hoping that DEI is providing us better education, you can look at it right here on the ground level, and it says African American students are often attend underfunded schools due to systemic issues like property tax-based funding. DEI in hiring or higher education does not resolve these fundamental disparities. And here's some of the data points. According to U.S. Department of Education, predominantly black schools receive $23 billion less in funding annually compared to predominantly white schools. This disparity undermines skill and knowledge acquisition before entering the job market. The implication is DEI policies may open doors but cannot address the educational gaps that hinder competitive qualifications. Pipeline problems. Many DEI programs focus on outcomes, meaning it focuses on, hey, can you show that you have this diverse workforce, right? Are you guys doing diversity or sensitivity training, or are you doing those things to maintain your DEI, right? Rather than fixing the pipeline that feeds into those outcomes without addressing systemic barriers like access to quality education, internship, mentorship, DEI efforts failed to produce better prepared candidates. In 2021, a study in educational evaluation and policy analysis found that African American students were underrepresented in advanced STEM courses, which limits their competitiveness in high demand fields. I mean, where's DEI?
But what is their obligation though?
What is
We're
whose
talking
obligation?
about a corporate entity. Their obligation is not
It's to the bottom line.
it's no, yeah, it's to their investors and to their shareholders.
Right.
And I think we had this conversation before. Like when you vote in your elected officials, and you have CEOs and companies that get voted in by their shareholders and their boards, they have two different jobs. Like that whole little crossover where a CEO would make a good mayor or a good governor because they can run a business. The people they answer to are different. So maybe their program is not supposed to affect society's issues with education and income and improper diet and redlining. So yeah, I think you're muddying that, like that the DEI was supposed to fix that outside of the corporation or the agency. DEI is inside of the company. It's not there to fix what the hell's why what's going on down the street or around the corner. It's in there for what? It's in there for the diversity of that company, right? That helps companies prevent lawsuits, fostering, and I'm reading, fair and inclusive workplace by reducing, that's the goal, discrimination and harassment. It's not there to say how come little Johnny down the street is failing in math. That's a whole nother country, damn near is so far away. That's a different goal. That's a different aim. That's a different problem. So I think you're muddying up DEI, say in the workplace, for example, and what's going on outside of the workplace. You have to show me where it that's part of its purpose is to fix what causes these disparities.
No, that's not what it's for.
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
Oh, now you know what it's for. Hey, what's up, Akbar? Joel, Akbar, man, state your case, man. What's on your mind?
Well, hello, my buddy.
What's him?
Your logic, it's Sonic, bro. I wanted to point out something. You can hear me, right?
Is that our Sonic?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I thought I heard the voice. Okay.
This is Akbar.
Be changing their names all over the place.
Yeah, I try to have fun with my name, okay? I want to be Akbar Singh, whatever the hell, Hotep. I'm the world. There was a gentleman in the chat named Bina Media, and he shared something that I agree with. He said DEI is just saying don't discriminate against qualified people because of their color, race, religion, gender, and that even includes people who have a disability. And what I'll add is DEI pretty much says do not discriminate against people who are qualified to do the job because you have a personal bias when you're hiring them. And even when you hire them, if you can accommodate them to be able to have the tools to do the job, give them those tools, and they will be just as effective or maybe more effective than somebody you will hire because of your own bias. I hope that helps.
Go ahead, Joel.
It does. All right, so let me share this. Let me see if I can share. I don't know how to do this on goddamn. Oh, here it is. Did this come up?
Yes.
Oh, it did come up. All right, so check this out. Because I think some of the issue is like so I don't think Logic is that far off of what we're saying. It's almost like he agrees, but Logic, you seem to be adding the understanding of affirmative action and pitting that against DEI. So let me read this real quick because I could be wrong, but that's what it sounds like you're doing that, right? So affirmative action, they're saying that's promoting equal representation. So that's where you get your 30 janitors from. Where you say, oh, we need enough. We have a workplace of 100 employees, and we need to be able to show that we're diversifying our workplace. So we're gonna hire X amount of people. Don't matter where you hire them at. You just need people in here in order to show that diversity. So that's why I says targeted recruitment. See what I'm saying? Quotas and goals, right? It does have preferential treatment in there as affirmative action, but that wasn't, I mean, that's not like the real biggest, that's that's not the focal point of affirmative action per se. Affirmative action is just more like, you know, you can't keep a person out of this workforce because of who they are. They're not a white male. You can't just like not hire them and hire white males, right? So then, all right, so this is what I want to get to. I want to get to the diversity, equity, and inclusion because I don't want to do a whole bunch of readership. So it says diversity, equity, and inclusion encompass broader principles and practices to create environments where all individuals feel valued, respected, and empowered to contribute fully. That's DEI. Unlike affirmative action, which focuses on specific outreach and remedial measures, DEI initiative prioritize creating cultures of belonging and equity for everyone, regardless of background. That's DEI. That's different from affirmative action. So Logic, I think what you got to do is like be able to compartmentalize those two, right? And try not to think of it from a standpoint of affirmative action, because that's where it seems like your mind is going.
I'm actually going to confess that I spent no time researching affirmative action for the past week or so that I've been looking this up, right? I've been looking strictly at DEI. So if I'm unintentionally incorporating affirmative action into DEI protocol or initiatives, I apologize. You can correct me there, right? I'm not against being corrected. Now, what you said was, I'm mad you took it off the screen. If you still have it up, right? Just imagine.
Bring it back up.
Yeah, go ahead, bring it back up. Right. I want you to remember what your last statement was, and I want to put that back in the atmosphere one more time, because the question is, and I remember you've heard me say this a couple of times about the vagueness, right? About the vagueness of what does that mean? And Hitz was talking about it real quickly, right? So if I need to make a workspace, if I need to make a space for my Muslim employee to pray, like, does it have to be on the clock, off the clock? Does it have to be a big space, small space? Does it need a carpet? Does it, like, you know what I'm saying? Does it have to have a shrine in there or whatever else he need? Like none of these other specific things are entailed. Right? Mm-hmm. Does he need to have a time where he could just go to his car and pray? Like, it's not specific at all. You get what I'm saying? So let's say we're talking about. You didn't. Let me see. Did you pull it back up?
Yeah, you don't see it.
Okay, so right here, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion encompasses broader principles and practices to create environments where individuals can feel valued. What does that mean?
Well, okay.
So respected and empowered to contribute fully. Unlike affirmative action, which focuses on specific outreach and remedial measures, DEI initiatives prioritize creating cultures of belonging and equity for everyone, regardless of background. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean, right, if I hold an annual meeting where we do that trust practice where you fall down and I catch you, right? Does that mean that we are DEI? I mean,
no. That just means that you do it for every
person behind me is of a different background or culture. You see how silly that is? Is that what you're telling me? What you mean it's not silly? Okay, so look, I've read it. I made my point.
Okay,
right. I'm gonna let you say something right after this. I'm gonna share my screen real quick.
Okay, let me stop sharing then. Okay.
I'm gonna share my stuff real quickly, right? Because Hitz actually asked a really good question. I think he was saying that it wasn't supposed to support things outside the workplace, and I actually agree, right? So for me, if it did affect things outside the workplace, I think it would. I think that would be a much better measurement for how successful it was. Because if we were getting those positions that paid much better, right? If we were better represented in those areas that paid much better, I think you could see significant impact outside the workplace.
No, but Hits showed that though. He showed
No,
them.
Hits showed that it's not supposed to, and I agree. I didn't disagree.
No,
I'm saying if it really were effective for what I wanted to do, I'm giving you my opinion now. For what I wanted to do, if it was effective, you would see that high. You would see that wage gap decreasing. You would see more African Americans buying homes. You would see more African Americans qualifying for loans. You would see more African Americans with a higher wage gap. All those other things, right? So here it is, right? I'm gonna try not to do the readership also, however measurable, blah. Okay, so it's saying that DEI focuses more on optics than substance. Did you know that? The issue, many DEI initiatives prioritize improving diversity metrics, which means on paper they diverse, right? Such as hiring more African Americans rather than ensuring that those hires have opportunities for meaningful advancement. So they could stay a janitor for 30, 40, 50 years.
Circumvent. You answer your own question.
Where? What I say? What I missed?
You said earlier, and then we got to go to a commercial, right? You said if DEI was supposed to do all of these things and change these metrics, then how come it didn't work? You just read it. Companies can do it for optics, but not really implement what they are for. And two, and let's not forget, a lot of things you mentioned, DEI was not for. It wasn't for increasing Billy and Bobby's grades. It wasn't for that. So there's a circumvention mechanism right there on your screen. Do it for optics, but then once they're in the building, don't elevate them, don't blah blah blah. But that's not what DEI is for. That just shows you another.
I can't disagree with that. You nailed it, right?
Method. Yeah,
you nailed it.
Gotcha.
Right. So that's me stating what I would prefer as an alternative, right? Not necessarily saying I know how we get there, but I'm saying if it gave us the results of something that is, or that we just cannot do without, I think you would see the increase in the wage, the decrease in the wage gap. You would see the increase in home ownership. You would see the increase in education levels in our neighborhood. You would
You would have to change America for that logic. Come on, stop, bro.
What?
No, that's a horrible argument, dude.
No, it's really not. It's really not because all I'm saying. Remember how we started? We started out, do we need DEI, right? And do we need something, right, that basically doesn't do anything more than say a company will incentivize y'all to hire 30 janitors, right? Like, is that what you saying we need? I mean, need, I think that's a strong word. I think that's a super duper strong word.
I think just putting it in a sentence like hire 30 black janitors is doing it a super injustice also. Because like Isonic mentioned,
that's
it's not just based on race. It can be based on age, religion. Matter of fact, let's go to commercial real quick. Right? And then Logic, you can come back and go to point number 2. And then we'll continue the conversation, right? So
I totally forgot we were supposed to do that. let me go ahead and press that button.
I got it.
Okay.
AOX9. Yeah. Check. With no discussion, bars to your chest, I have your shoulders touching. So dope, get flagged by US Customs, you just robotussing. Bitches, I just love a lust. Quickly get they soul adjust. Nostril hairs on polar bears, ain't nowhere near as cold as us. A bad bitch vocalist be stroking this. Microphone check, 1, 2, I'm on like a broken switch. Higher than these Bitcoin stock prices. Pull a bad bitch on site license. Badu to the ice spices. Love how I eloquently vocalize a business plan. Flying piece of peanut butter breath like I'm Peter Pan. Peter Man had a white bitch, but she need a tan. I'm very pan. Afghan from the motherland, make it hot. Get the butter, drop it it in a pan, let it sizzle. Now we cooking, I'm about to do my dance. Got a booking overseas, I'm about to groove with friends. Kept it P, kept it solid, now all my moves advanced. Enhanced the vision, the psilocybin business. Got me and my mans advanced in business. Can I get an A-man to witness? Cause you can be a man and witness to Satan is relentless. It's DQ.
Trimedia Records.
This is my story. Get the story.
Oh yeah, I do. You see me calling, nigga. Out of this league, a workaholic, nigga. Nickname, Big James, big thing. Handle his business, he never switched lanes. Had some brain surgeries in high school. Still came out that bitch a top dude. Moved to the city of the Mavericks. Came out this bitch dropping classes.
Welcome back.
Shit.
And in case y'all haven't figured out, this show is sponsored by DQ.
I know one
In the
thing,
future,
DQ was
Trimedia
flowing
Records.
on that beat. Good gracious.
He was balling.
Definitely, hey, go get DQ's book. It's available on Amazon. You know, we're gonna play commercial for that later. Bass Fishing Tips. His music available on all platforms, right? The show definitely sponsored by DQ. Try to realize my bad.
Your mic just went ugly, Hits.
You good? That me?
Mm-hmm.
Logic,
I can hear you now.
Okay, there you go. Got you. My bad.
What that is? No, what this is? What that is? Okay. My bad.
So Logic.
What's happening?
All right. So let me ask you this. So, all right, first of all, did what I shared, did it help you to differentiate between affirmative action and DEI? Did it you know I dropped the link in your private chat too, just so you can go read it.
Unfortunately, I don't remember you reading something that specified what affirmative action was. I remember it saying about where DEI separates from affirmative action, but I don't necessarily remember it being specific as far as what affirmative action is.
I dropped the link in the chat.
So that might be something I can go over, right?
Okay.
I mean, but I think for the larger point, I think it's you know, at the very least, the most general way I could say it is if it could use upgrading.
Yeah,
right?
and I agree. I agree that it
At the
does.
very least, right? As it sits in its current state,
Mhm.
I would say that it does help, but I'm not sure how significant it is, since I can't take the data outside of the workplace, outside of the hires, and find significant upgrades, right, to salary, to lessening the wealth gap, to all the other metrics that you might consider as a thriving community, right? Like those were the things
I don't think
that
you
I would
tried,
say
I don't
in
think you
50
tried that.
years, that I should be able to see some significant growth in.
50 years? Where you getting 50 years from?
DEI started in 1968.
No. Is that accurate? I don't know if that's accurate. That don't sound right, Logic.
Yeah, it is, bro. It's true.
I don't
It happened right after the Civil Rights Act, 1965, 64. I might have that wrong, but DEI is 1968.
Yeah. All right.
I don't
Before
think you tried to
1970.
make that correlation though, Logic, that because you would have to go through, and again, that's taking a blanket number, 50 years. You'd have to go through either by decade by administration every 4 years, by different sectors, whether it's legal, those people who are in agencies of law and enforcement, education systems, corporations.
That's a strong point.
Yeah, you'd have to do a more detailed comparison. Like if we go back to that list of companies, right, that said by having a more diverse workforce, their bottom line grew, right? So you'd have to find out female diversity, religious background, and then I'm gonna show a screen, with just different categories, and then maybe you can do a correlation. But I bet you at the same time, without having the information off the top of my head, I can show you a circumvention method. That not only circumvents DI, which is mainly a workplace agency initiative, but things that circumvent civil rights, home ownership, pay grade, income inequality, just like you said earlier, health issues. I bet you we can find direct things that circumvent that and actually keep these things at that level that has nothing to do with Joel understanding that he may be working next to someone who's a gay person and he need to watch his mouth because that person may become offended or feel harassed. That's a different metric. So that's where that history comes in. That us older people have no choice but to talk. We lived it. Not lived circumstance, but if I'm here 55 years, I'm here 55 years. I'm not going to act like I'm here 18 years, 30 years. I'm here 55. And any experience I have, I willingly share with people if it can better their situation or their understanding. So, on some of these shows, we're high level, way up in the helicopter. Like we're not down in the granular micro, right? So I bet you we can show methods that diverted where some of these programs, even laws and policies, were supposed to go, and how they didn't. And you could take something recent like Black Lives Matter, how that was co-opted. That was just co-opted by corporations.
Let me say this, Hits. Plus America never stopped fighting against these things. Trying to it's gonna be difficult to look for a lot of statistics that says that this stuff did good. I mean, there's no law enforcing this. And in America, America start something. A lot of these corporations, they don't want to do this stuff. They don't want to pay somebody extra to do this stuff and all that. So they just drop these. And a lot of states don't even pick it up. So this is being fought against all the time. Matter of fact, there's states right now saying, man, we getting this up out of here as soon as Trump hit the office. This stuff gone. So it's being fought against, Logic. So, I mean, it's not like you can say, oh, well, this stuff being enforced, they holding people accountable to it, blah, 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 blah. So, I mean, you got to take that into consideration also.
I'm trying, yo. I think that's like a whole time while I'm having a conversation with y'all because, and it's not necessarily my man Hits, but I mean, I don't like, that's my man right there. But yeah, in this particular time we're disagreeing, but like, that's what I'm trying to figure out. So if it don't protect us or do none of that stuff, then what does it do?
It does help to some degree, but not to the degree you want it.
Supposed to do, right? So what is it doing again?
But that just means we just need to improve on it and have people really embrace it. That don't mean get rid of it.
I wouldn't disagree with that, but I'm talking about the current thing that we have now.
Okay. No, I'm with you there. We agree right there.
Upgrade could look like.
We agree right there. That's like I typed in the chat. I said I jumped out the car with Chef and jumped in with Logic. As soon as you said, okay, we fine with it, but we need to do some upgrades. I agree.
Go ahead and speak to what you have on the screen. So we're not trying.
So right here is CNN have a report. CNN had a report in 2024, February 20th, 2024, where they say home ownership gap between black and white owners is worse now than a decade ago, right? So it just kind of goes through, your general information about people having issues buying houses. Of course, the property values are going up, and a lot of people's income is staying where it is, if not going down. Blah blah blah. Price of living, inflation, you name it. All those factors in between, and as you come all the way down here, and you're looking at again an initiative that has been in existence for 50 years. We're still talking about the median household being 47, while the white people's is 75. We're still talking about home ownership gap. We're still talking about the income gap. And CNN is reporting that it has worsened over the past decade, right? And you would like to think that the past decade has been the most aggressive for DEI. The DEI came in, it had like a revamping, a reawakening after the George Floyd incident, right? In the Black Lives Matter movement, where it became, I guess, corporate and corporate. It worked in the corporation's favor to put this DEI initiative out on the forefront, to be advertised as a DEI company, which hit shows earlier. It affected their bottom line, right? Right. It positively affected their bottom line big time. So while the companies were making more money off of it, we might still be the janitor, yo. Right. While we're doing that, and they're not necessarily providing us skills to even go to other companies and participate in some of that vertical integration within corporations. They're not providing us any skills to do anything other than stay exactly where we're at, right? And that still allows them to meet whatever that very loose, ambiguous, vague interpretation of a DEI friendly corporation is.
Quick example of using home ownership, right? And history. If I go to work and I make more money, because somehow you keep equating this to it being able to take me, an unqualified individual, right? Give me a job just based on my gender, my sexuality, my background, whether I'm handicapped or not, blah blah blah. Give me more money. I take that money, I buy a home in an affluent white neighborhood. You ever heard of white flight?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so there's ways to, again, devalue, circumvent just what you're talking about. That things like, oh, now hold on, let me share my screen. Just and it's just, I'm definitely not going to read this. We ain't doing read 'em shit. Shout out Pseudo Killers, brother Unc and everybody over there, right? Don't hit them with the read 'em shit. That's what he said. Brookings Institute, home ownership, racial segregation, and policy solution to racial wealth equity. You wouldn't need a solution unless you had a problem. Can we agree to that?
Yep.
This problem seems to be what? Racial wealth equity. And what? Home ownership segregation.
Mm-hmm.
Policy solutions, where you have to enact this into law, policies, not necessary procedures or programs like what DEI is, right? Another example, real world. If you work in manufacturing or production or any facility that requires a cleaning program, the government gives you something called GMPs, good manufacturing practices. You come up with the SOPs, what? The standard operating procedures. The government will tell you that floor got to be mopped once a day if you're going to serve food there. Period. You decide who mops it, when they mop it, how much ammonia they use, what kind of mop head, but that damn floor better be mopped once a day. That's the standard. You create the procedure. The guy who comes in at 8 o'clock, He's going to mop it with 30% water, 40% ammonia, or bleach, whatever the hell you mop the floor with, right? He's going to use this mop, change that mop head out every 2 weeks. So you even have a discrepancy on what is actually done, as long as you find the overall overall practice, good manufacturing practices. Those are government standards. But home ownership, things like this, they show you Black Americans who post a home ownership of 46.4% compared to 75% of white families. So just making more money is not going to, just something that simple, how, not that you're saying it, but if you just look at it that way, you making more money is not going to lessen money that white people make or lower the value of their home or their ability or their credit score just by you making more money and moving to the outskirts of your town to buy a house that costs a little bit more. And it may even cause what? White flight. That they leave. Now your property is devalued.
Yep. Facts.
You made more money. You bought a home. You're doing better. The bank says no. The county assessors. Yeah, your property's not as worth as much as you think it is. That's civics and all that stuff.
That
So
07, 08 housing crisis took a bunch of homes from us.
But my interest is always in what circumvents. What are some of the things that hold up Black people? Not that we can't, we don't get it. This shit ain't helping. We don't know enough. Just let us rock on our own. Yeah, if they let you rock on your own, we probably would. There's a lot of preventative shit going on, bro.
Oh, yeah. What about all the banks that just got caught not wanting to give us loans? Or when we go to sell our houses, the value
Wells
down.
Fargo stay in court paying out money. So, but another screen real quick. I just wanted to find it. And this is a site because, we like to learn. We like to teach. If you go to Equal Employment Opportunity Commission website, you can find out the enforcement and litigation statistics across the country by year, by region, and by type, which is important. Age, color, disability, equal pay. The gene of, I think that's a law about your genes as far as insurance goes. Like if you have a history that's a genetic defect, they can discriminate against you. So that's a discrimination type. Your genetics is a discrimination type. National origin, pregnant workers, race, religion, retaliation, sex, and I guess retaliation again. But these are the different categories that you, whether you believe it, like it, or understand it, these groups have been discriminated against. A disability. If you're in a wheelchair and there's only stairs to enter a public building, that's discrimination. You have not been accommodated. So when you see a wheelchair ramp somewhere, somebody had to make that happen. Nobody just said, hey, why don't we build a ramp? I'm not spending that money to build a ramp to my restaurant. I'm not spending that money.
Right. Not if you don't have to.
No, they came in there and said, yeah, you better. They're going to take your ass to court. So you can spend it in court getting sued and still build the ramp. We can just build the ramp by law. So discrimination comes in many different types. So I know we're concerned about us first, but a lot of these things aren't just based off us. DI is just not based off African Americans or race. So
I got to jump off, y'all. I'm about to fade the blind. Hey, this was a good show, Logic.
Yes, sir. Brother Logic.
It's good information, man. I catch y'all.
Appreciate you, Joel, man.
Yes,
Pull
sir.
up, man. Next time you see us live, bro, come out at it.
Oh, yeah, you got it. Peace out.
One. Logic, good show, man. Thank you to everybody in the chat who came through.
No, actually, I appreciate you coming on because I couldn't see where I was being vague at or not being specific because I felt like honestly, I felt like Chef was doing such a bad job. Like it wouldn't have made any sense. It wouldn't have made any sense for me to start out throwing my slider, throwing my curveball, right? Like, and I know he throwing batting practice pitches at me.
He
Like, you know
cutting
what I'm saying?
Jesus' hair. He cutting Jesus' hair. He won the
He,
day with
yeah,
that.
his argument is a mannequin head, right? And I'm talking about like at least like where do we actually see this benefiting us? So you get outside the workplace, it's hard to find them, right? You get inside the workplace, you can find them, but under very specific circumstances. And I think the circumstances that you would expect by now, and maybe this is just me, right?
No, that's a good question though. How does that translate outside of the workplace? Now, that's
I think
something
I think that's a very fair question.
yeah,
I think so.
I think that'd be something that I'd be interested in looking into because we have the data, we have the information. It's just correlating it. And with technology, we can do that. We could pick a year, a decade. We can pick an industry. We could pick a policy, a state. You know, all of this information is available. I think technology allows us now to access that information and process it a little quicker and get to the point. You know, get to what we're actually looking for. So, no, that's definitely a fair question. Since we're there on DEI, not on DEI, but DEI is there. How does that benefit us once we leave work? You know, so that's definitely or this agency.
Right. We return back to the same social economic, conditions, and to be even more specific, DEI is about representation at the workplace. So you want to be represented in your numbers, right? And of course, Black people aren't the only minority, right? You have white women, you got old people, you got disabled people, you got all sorts of people.
Yeah.
Gay people, like so that 30 janitors can be split up between all those other.
That's a fact.
Under the vague hood.
Am I freezing or are you freezing? Is that me?
Point, right? Because argument. Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
I went out for a
didn't know
second.
if that was me or you. You're good. Go ahead, bro.
No, it was me. I could see my signal fading a little bit, but yeah, like all of that's under the vague hood of DEI, right? You know, so what do they mean when they're trying to, be in, they're after the bottom line, right? They're after all the benefits from corporately advertising them being diverse, equitable and inclusive. Now behind that, right, how do they actually get that done, right, is a totally different story. So, and again, we started out, look at the title of the stream. Do Black people need DEI? Right? I think that as DEI currently sits, I can't deny that it has some benefits to Black people, but I would say in the areas where we probably need the most help, I don't think it does. It doesn't better our education. Doesn't look like it's increasing our wages. It doesn't seem to be addressing our social economic circumstances directly.
As a group and in a certain period of time, again, I'm sure the audience would also like some information, but a lot of us do the me thing, the I thing. And also, I would always look for the pushback. What was pushing back? More money should mean more opportunities. Better health should mean or better food and activity should mean better health. Like these things, this plus this should equal that. Opportunity should equal advancement, should equal money, should equal ownership, should equal all of these things. And for some reason, like you said, you said it. If we're showing up on the bottom of these metrics and these statistics, you can say, well, that didn't help, that didn't help. I want to know, well, what are the reasons that we are showing up down there? It's not that something didn't help. What was the prevention mechanism, right?
Oh,
we had I am on, with property.
Oh, there's no doubt that there are some systemic inequalities out there, right? And to again, I'm trying my best to simplify it, right? I'm saying that DEI does not directly address those concerns. It's like a
But what if
band-aid.
it wasn't
It's like
implemented to?
it's cosmetic. Like it looked like it's doing it. Like
I think
if you
y'all took
read
an
if
argument.
you read the verbiage, you could be under the assumption, man, this does XYZ for black people. But again, you had to get back into the does it for minorities, and then you got to go into how it's implemented at a corporate level. Like again, we gave the extreme example of the janitors, right? And talked about how it doesn't provide you with training to move from a janitor to a salesperson, right? Like that's part of the issue. You know what I'm saying? It's exactly what does all of that stuff mean? What is
Okay. Ask yourself this, right?
mm-hmm.
Those stats that I showed earlier on EOC, you can look up who benefits from understanding litigation against corporations or government agencies. The number one thing I'm sure you're going to find is employers, which is the fancy word for what? Companies or businesses. They benefit from understanding just from a litigation standpoint, which is sad that I need to do this or I'm going to get sued. Not because it's right or because these people are qualified or not qualified, or more likely human nature, they don't look like me. They don't talk like me. They don't dress like me. They're shorter than me. This one likes a whole different sex than I like. This one's in a wheelchair. This one, comes from this neighborhood. You had, and if that was not the goal, it seemed more like DEI is for the workplace or for the environment where you go to make these environments, and not just the environment, but the people. You can have DEI signs all through a workplace. Cover your mouth when you cough, because there may be someone here with a bad immune system, right? Remember, we saw that GINA Act or law. Watch your language. You're talking about gay people. Watch the jokes, because you have elderly people that work here. You actually have some places that put you through training, harassment courses. What's the one where they not empathy, but they just these classes that you have to go through. So it's not just signage, it could be a physical process that you have to go through. That's there for a reason. Because people don't do the right shit, bro. They don't. And it's not people's fault all the time. It's your bias, like Isonic mentioned. We all have inherent biases. That we just, and sometimes you need to have that brought to your attention, right? Especially if not brought to your attention, someone can get sued. But I think you guys in the chat and in the Discord are attaching that to African Americans. With the good question, how does it help us? How do it free us? But if that's not the goal of it, we can't shoehorn that in there. But it should have some implications. I do definitely agree with you on that.
Well, you know what? Speaking of that, right? If that's the case, I think, and I thought about this earlier, and I couldn't quite figure out how to say it, but I still pose the question: like, does critical race theory potentially curb some of those biases better than DEI?
I believe critical race theory was something taught just off the top of my head. Pause, because Brass is probably listening. I believe that has something to do with law. That they taught law students. It was part of their curriculum, and it was based on how race is whether they have to be cognizant of how race is impacted, or how race affects law, or law affects race, or their connection. It wasn't even broad based. That's what I was looking for earlier. I just found my little note. I had it in big bold letters. Trigger words. DEI is a trigger word. Just like CRT's critical race theory, they turn that into a trigger word. We ought to do a show on propaganda, right? How you can take a word that means one thing, and through propaganda and algorithms and manipulation, make that word mean the complete opposite, or make people believe it does.
Right.
If you Google critical race theory, it's I bet you it's not going to be what most people think. It was something that was taught, I believe, to law students, if I remember correctly. I might be
I
wrong.
agree. I remember reading something about it to where it says it's like it has the potential to curb those biases in a way where a person could return back to their own intimate, quiet circles with other people that they communicate with and have enough information to
right now. Let's just go
to basically let other people know that what they're doing could potentially be harmful, right? Like it's almost like trying to start one person at a time. Hey, you let me I don't even want to say all that, but like, but basically give a person enough competence and confidence. I believe those were the two words I remember reading.
I'm going to read it because, like I said, we got technology, right?
Okay,
Critical race theory is an academic and legal framework that recognizes systemic racism in American society. Key words: academic and legal framework. The academic part, I believe, I'm trying to scroll and read, it was on a college level, and it wasn't taught across the board. You had to be, I guess in certain programs or curriculums in college. So it became a trigger word for whichever political party used it, and they said, "Oh, they're teaching it to all to the kids." I think it's in Florida or some shit like that. It started. Or they're teaching our kids, the white kids, to feel ashamed. They're teaching them that they're inherently racist, and that has nothing to do with what it is. But by the time the actuality of what it is was too late. The word was ruined. So hopefully we don't do that with DEI. Take a word, make it a trigger word, and then end up sticking it somewhere on a topic that it doesn't belong. That's another pause for Brass, in case you're listening. But hopefully we don't take the DEI word and just inappropriately place it and use it to trigger people. But I think we got some things accomplished tonight.
Yeah, I think we did great. I think we got a lot further than the surface, and we're still scratching right at this point.
Yes, sir.
Like we're way past the surface, but I think we're really at this point kind of showing about how deep the conversation actually is. It goes way beyond just the surface about DEI, right? And when you start asking these deeper questions, it poses more questions that you then have to look into to be able to verify whatever position that you're going to get to. But it goes way, way, way past just this general knowledge. You got anything you want to say to close out? I'm done.
Thank you to everyone who came through. Our guests on the panel: Joel, Isonic, Chef. Follow our channels. Again, if you're in the chat, you have a channel. Put your channel in the chat. Big shout out to our brother Brass, DQ. Good show, my brother. I planned on staying in the background, but this is good stuff. We always want to move the conversation forward. We want to learn and teach when we can. So that's definitely a good thing. Keep an eye out for Tri-Media future shows. That's it. And just thank you for everybody who stopped in for their comments and all that. Like the show, share, subscribe, hit the notification icon. That's all I got. Y'all have a good night. Have a good holiday. If I don't interact with any of you people, enjoy your holiday. Be safe out there. It's wintertime. Drive slow. All right, y'all. I'm out. Good show, brother.
AOX9. Yeah. Check. with no discussion. Bars to your chest, I have your shoulders touching. So dope, get flagged by U.S. Customs. You just robotussing. Bitches, I just love a lust. Quickly get they soul adjust. Nostril hairs on polar bears, ain't nowhere near as cold as us. A bad bitch vocalist be stroking this. Microphone check, 1, 2, I'm on like a broken switch. Higher than these Bitcoin stock prices. Pull a bad bitch on site license. Badu to the ice spices. Love how I eloquently vocalize a business plan. Flying pizza, peanut butter breath like I'm Peter Pan. He the man, had a white bitch, but she need a tan. I'm very pan, Afghan from the motherland. Make it hot, get the butter, drop it in a pan, let it sizzle. Now we cooking, I'm about to do my dance. Got a booking overseas, I'm about to groove with friends. Kept it P, kept it solid, now all my moves advanced. Enhanced the vision, the psilocybin business. Got me and my mans advanced in business. Can I get an amen to witness? Cause you can be a man and witness to Satan is